Welcome to the November 25th, 2013 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Pastor Dan Lewis from Troy Christian Chapel with us this evening to give the invocation. Please rise for that and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in this season of the year when we contemplate the importance of being thankful, may we truly be thankful from our hearts for the good gifts that you give. The first sign of acknowledgement of you is thankfulness. And by the same token, the first sign of a rejection of you is the lack of thankfulness. So we want to be truly thankful. Many years ago, our 16th president repeatedly called the nation to thanksgiving and prayer, not only in this season of the year, but in other seasons of the year as well. And during the great conflict in our country, this was an important call for the nation to be thankful for the gifts that you give. So we ask for all of us as people who have received such good gifts that we would be truly thankful. May your blessing be upon the council tonight and upon this assembly. We ask this in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Campbell? Here. Councilmember Fleming?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
Councilmember Teets?
Here.
All present. Our first order of business is certificates of recognition and special presentations. And I will move down to the podium and meet MML President Jacqueline Noonan, and we will make a wonderful presentation tonight, and I'll meet you at the podium.
Thank you, Mayor Slater. I'm going to turn the mic over briefly to Samantha Harkins, a legislative liaison for Michigan Municipal League, and then I will present the award after that.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, and your wonderful staff for having us today. We are really excited to present our 2013 Legislator of the Year Award to Senator John Papageorge. Senator Papageorge could not be more deserving of this award. When we talk about advocates for communities in Lansing, he is the top of the list. Not just for the city of Troy, but for communities all across the state. He is the chair of the General Government Appropriations Subcommittee, and when we get more money, it's because this guy has been pushing for it. So we could not be more pleased with him and Lansing from the city of Troy's perspective and also for communities across the state. So we're really pleased to give him this award.
If we could just ask Senator Papageorge to come forward. I think everyone recognizes him, but we need to see him up here. Let's turn around this way.
All righty.
Face the audience.
It is my distinct honor as the president of the Michigan Municipal League to thank John Papageorge for his work in the Senate for all cities and villages in Michigan. And it has long been a history of MML to recognize excellence in service to the legislature with this award. So it is my distinct honor to single you out as Legislator of the Year for 2013. Congratulations.
Use it up on that count.
Not to be outdone, the city of Troy also has a proclamation that, I'm not going to read this, it's very lengthy, if that's okay, but I did, on behalf of the City of Troy, I have a proclamation in recognition of State Senator John Papageorge. And if I could, I'll just read the last two paragraphs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council extends special recognition to State Senator John Papageorge as the MML Legislator of the Year, and thanks to him for his efforts in the passage of legislation that benefits local governments and for fighting consistently to support local government. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council and all the Troy residents congratulate Troy resident State Senator John Papageorge for being such a tireless supporter of the City of Troy and wish him continued success in all future endeavors. Presented this 25th day of November 2013, and it's signed by myself, all members of City Council, and we couldn't be more proud of our resident, John Papageorge. Congratulations. We got one. You want to say something?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Well, I'll be brief. I'm very much honored for these awards and for the kind words. Actually, I thought it went better during the rehearsal. But in all seriousness, I really cherish this and the fact that it's presented in my city. And so I thank you all.
Thank you.
I think rather than keep going back and forth, the next certificate of recognition for Smith Middle School students who volunteered to clean up Troy parks, and Cindy Stewart, our Community Affairs Director, is going to give a brief introduction. And if I could get all of the kids to come forward. Come on around behind here, okay, guys?
Let's get the short ones in the front, so we see everybody's face back in. Yeah, very good, that's good, that's right. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
While she's looking, the City of Troy was approached once again by Mrs. Klein from Smith Middle School, a science teacher, that she believes in her students giving back to the community. And we had a project a few years ago with Julia and Andrew took part in cleaning up Sylvan Glen Lake Park. Well, this year, they are high school students, and they came back to Mrs. Klein and wanted to do it again and team up with some of her middle school kids. So we are very, very proud that we have our high school representative. Yep, our high school representative.
I'm going to read just one of these, okay, because this kind of sums up what this is all about. So come on up here and let me present this, if I could, to Julia Howard Downey.
Yes.
Downey?
Downey.
In recognition for her involvement with Smith Middle School team, led by Troy High students Julia Howard Downey and Andrew Williams, to help clean and spread mulch on the nature trail at Sylvan Glen Lake Park, and to raise public awareness that pollution should not be ignored, that it is every person's responsibility to stop it. The campaign to clean up Sylvan Glen Park has also increased awareness about the importance of volunteering in one's community. The City of Troy extends heartfelt appreciation to Julia as a volunteer with the Sylvan Glen Park Green Team. You are an inspiration to the Troy community and a credit to yourself, your family, the Troy School District, and the City of Troy. It's presented this 25th day of November. Congratulations and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
We do have a,
Andrew couldn't be here, so we have that one for Andrew.
Okay.
And then,
okay, Nancy.
Can make it short.
Well, I'm going to read it, okay? This is a certificate of recognition for Nancy Klein. In recognition for her leadership as a Smith Middle School teacher, Nancy Klein teaches her students a love of nature and the sciences, as well as pride in giving back to one's community. This year, her students volunteered to help clean and spread mulch on the nature trail at Sylvan Glen Lake Park. The middle school students, led by two of Nancy's former students, now at Troy High, helped to raise public awareness that pollution should not be ignored and that it is every person's responsibility to stop it. The campaign to clean up Sylvan Glen Park also increased awareness about the importance of volunteering in one's community. The City of Troy extends heartfelt appreciation to Nancy Klein as a dedicated Troy School District educator. You are an inspiration to the Troy community and a credit to yourself, your family, the Troy School District, Smith Middle School, and the City of Troy. It's presented this 25th day of November 2013. Congratulations, Nancy, and thanks for all you do for Troy. Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Just to thank the kids behind me, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. They are an inspiration. They're our future, and I believe in them. So thank all of you for being who you are and helping.
Certificate for all of the students, and
We can meet out in the hall.
you can meet out in the hallway, and we'll thank you so much for all you do for helping Troy. Thank you. Thanks. C3 is the Troy High School senior and Eagle Scout candidate, Kyle Newberry, to present a check for money raised for his Eagle Scout project to the Troy Nature Society. So also, is Kyle here? Hi, Kyle. How are you?
I'm all right.
Congratulations, and you want to come up here?
Sure. I'm not very good at public speaking.
You want me to help you? Come on. You going to present something?
I am.
Okay. Do we have somebody from the Troy Nature Society here?
So I thought I was going to present.
How about if you present it to me and I'll get it to them?
All
How
right.
would that be? You want to say something? Just look out here, look up at the clock. You get a badge if you can do this, all right? Go for it.
I'm presenting money from my Eagle Scout project, which was to build and repair benches around the, thank you, which was to build and repair benches around the Troy Community Center tennis domes. And I had leftover money, which I am going to be donating to the Troy Nature Center.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. And she'll make sure that, but thanks for all you do. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you. Okay, our next certificate of recognition is the Service Commendation Award to Peggy Sears, Human Resources Director. If I could get Peggy to come up here. Peggy and I go back a long ways with the City of Troy. And it's my honor, Peggy, to present this service commendation to you. And if I could, I'd like to read it because it is quite an accomplishment. Whereas Peggy Sears began her career with the City of Troy on June 15th, 1977 as a personal technician in the Human Resources Department. And whereas Peggy was promoted on March 6, 1989 to acting personnel director, and on November 11, 1991 began bargaining agreements. Let me just start this over again here. You were promoted on March 6, 1989 to acting personnel director, and on November 11, 1991 promoted to the city's Troy Human Resources Director. And whereas, while Human Resources Director Peggy worked under 5 city managers, settled 28 collective bargaining agreements, and hired or supervised the hiring of thousands of quality City of Troy employees, and whereas Peggy was an active member of MPLRA, the Michigan Public Employer Labor Relations Association, including past president and longtime secretary, and whereas Peggy has been an active supporter of the American Red Cross, donating blood and rarely missing one of the Troy community's blood drives, and is proud alum of Michigan State University, go Green. And whereas, while not an easy time in Troy during the economic downturn, Peggy worked tirelessly with city management and all departments as Troy went through a serious downsizing of personnel to meet the declining revenues, which helped lay the foundation for Troy's ultimate success in its rebound. And whereas Peggy retired from the City of Troy on December 13, 2013, after 36 years of dedicated service and the utmost respect from Troy employees and countless members of the human resources/labor relations organizations she served. And whereas Peggy will now enjoy more time with her fiancé, Gil, who I know very well, a wedding is planned for 2014, son Justin, daughter-in-law Jenna, and granddaughters Mara and Charlotte, and son Dan, as well as working on quilting, needlepoint, and baking projects. And now, therefore, be it known that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy take this opportunity to express their appreciation to Peggy Sears for her many contributions to the betterment of the city. And be it further known that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy, City Management, and the citizens of the City of Troy extend wishes of prosperity, good health, and happiness to Peggy during her retirement years. Presented this 25th day of November 2013. It's signed by myself and all members of City Council. Congratulations, Peggy. You'll be dearly missed, but congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, you've been here a long time when you know fewer employees than you do retirees, but it has been a great career. I've had the privilege of working with and for the best, and I feel very blessed and appreciative of the experience I've had here. I think we've shown that we can work together, get through some pretty rough times that I would never want to go through again, but I wish you all the best as well. God bless.
Okay, we got all the fun part done. We have no carryover items, so our next order of business is public hearings. Our first public hearing is for Industrial Development District, IDD, for Magna U.S. Holdings, Inc. at 750 Tower. And I see Nino, our city assessor, coming forward. I will open the public hearing and give you the floor, Nino.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Official welcome to you, Mrs. Hodrak. Nice to have you. A little choked up here. It's hard to believe Peggy hired me, and you're what, 20 years younger than me? Yeah, I mean, good Lord, God bless her. We have 2 public hearings tonight. They're for tax abatement. We should be relatively familiar with the subject. It's for Magna USA Holdings. They're consolidating 3 of their divisions at 750 Tower Drive in Troy. The intent is to retain 990 jobs. They've had some strong offers from out of state. They decided to stay here. They did have their corporate headquarters just on the other side of the expressway from us. They're going to lease the building for about 10 years and try to create 30 new jobs. The personal property investment's about $6 million. Under the terms of the city's tax abatement policy, they would qualify for a 9-year abatement with a total overall savings to them of $250,000, of which $84,000 is, that's not the savings, that's the total taxes, excuse me. $84,000 would be city taxes. Their savings over the 9 years would be $125,000. The net to the city is $42,000 that you're not getting right now, which is one of the issues we look at for tax abatement. I believe the phrase was half a loaf is better than no bread at all. The issue before you is to grant the abatement, but before you can do that, you have to establish a district. That's why we present all the information up front on establishing the district, so you know what you're looking at ahead of time, because if you're not going to grant the abatement, there's no reason to have a district at this site. Ms. Janice Thomas from Magna is in the audience if you have any specific questions for her. But the abatement itself, as I said, it's 9 years, $42,000 to the city, and we're looking at 990 jobs staying here and another 30 coming on. And I can answer any other questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Licari?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, return it to council for a resolution.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
I resolve...
Would you like to move it as printed?
Move it as printed, yeah.
Thank you.
It's long.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve E1 as printed. Is there any discussion? Councilman Campbell?
I have to recuse myself of voting. I have a business and financial relationship with Magna, so I won't be voting on either one of these items.
Very well. Any further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
No.
Motion passes. Our next item of business is E2, a public hearing for industrial facilities exemption certificate, IFEC, for Magna US Holdings at 750 Tower. Mr. Licari, did you want to say anything again on this?
There's nothing more to add at this point, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Licari? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing, return it to the table for a resolution.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
I'll move this resolution as printed as well.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilman Fleming that we approve E2 as printed. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Our next order of business is public comment for items on the agenda. I notice there are 8 who signed up to speak. If I could, just for those citizens that plan to speak at either of the public comment sections this evening, please review the rules and regulations portion of the agenda as we will strictly enforce those rules. Our first speaker is Dr. Samuel Fawaz to speak on I-5. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Sam Fawaz. I'm a physician at Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak. I'm here at the invitation of Chief of Police Gary Mayer and Ms. Nancy Morrison from the Troy Community Coalition to speak about an issue called hookah smoking. I'm a co-founder of what's called the Hookah Awareness Coalition at Beaumont Health System in conjunction with various community coalitions, including the City of Troy. This came to my attention when we had a conference recently, and I had the pleasure of meeting the police chief and Ms. Morrison when we invited elected officials, police chiefs, and community leaders and administrators from police and from school systems and superintendents to discuss an issue that I believe is a public health epidemic and has been ranked as the #1 issue for public health by the World Health Organization. Hookah smoking, from a medical perspective, is a leisurely activity that's being conducted and is spreading like wildfire across the country, especially targeting college campuses. There's a lot of misconception in the air about what it is and what it does and what the harms of it could be, and I'm here to clear up some of that misinformation that's been perpetuated. It is a form of smoking. Every study that's been conducted by the Centers for Disease Control as well as the American Lung Society has concluded that an hour session of this activity is the equivalent of smoking 100 to 200 cigarettes. It is a source of communicable diseases including herpes as well as tuberculosis that's latent in some individuals. It is becoming somewhat of an experimental item for youngsters. We all know children and teens like to experiment, and they tend to use it as a source or as a vehicle for illicit and hazardous substances that they can inhale or experiment with. As an issue, it hits near and dear to my heart because I'm a father of 4 boys, and we're trying to spread some awareness about this issue. We fully recognize that it's being served in lounges and businesses, and we are not anti-business, but what we want to do is we want to spread the knowledge about it because you can't defy scientific knowledge, and there's a lot of misinformation about this activity, and we want to hopefully educate the public at large, let them understand what we're dealing with so that they can address it appropriately, and we're hoping the City of Troy sets the bar and the precedent and the standard that could be carried out nationally, not just locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Our next speaker is business owner Lazar Jovansky to also speak on I-5. Good evening.
Good evening. I apologize for my attire. This is not a place to be dressed like this, but I have to work for a living. I own a plaza on 18 in Rochester, and I got notified that my clients are being harassed bi-weekly by police coming in and checking everybody's driver's license. I have a daughter and 2 granddaughters. At the meeting that the city ordinance was enacted, a lady was raving about the war against Hooters. I'm here to say that my daughter worked at Hooters. She holds a master's degree in engineering and worked for International Corporation. She didn't sleep with any of the clients contrary to the beliefs of many people. It's just another restaurant with a shtick. People go out of places with liquor licenses, drinking, driving, and killing people, and they're open till 2 o'clock in the morning. The hookah places are about the only place where 18 to 21-year-olds can gather, close at 12 o'clock. Didn't we learn from Prohibition that actually increased liquor consumption? War on drug that cost billions of dollars and increased drug consumption, and war on contraceptives that increased teen pregnancies. I wish my granddaughters never learned to smoke. I don't smoke. My daughter does not smoke. But morality is not ever legislated by city fathers, state fathers, or Congress. It starts at home. And my daughter learned good ways and went to good college and got a good degree in spite of working at Hooters. Hookah bars ought to be let to live and die on their own like many other businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please read the rules, please. Our next speaker is resident Jonathan Yokub to speak also on I-5.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jonathan Yakub. I am the owner, actually, and operator of the Blue Moon Hookah Lounge on Long Lake and John R. I'm sorry, I got everything written down. A little nervous. You guys recently passed the ordinance that caused us to close at 12 o'clock, and we did everything the city asked us to do, to the T and more. I followed whatever the police department asked me to do. I put up signs. Anything they asked, it was done with no problems. As far as my business is concerned, in total sales within the past 5.5 months, I'm down over 50% a month in total sales, and that's for the past 5.5 months. That's how bad those 2 hours really do impact our business. We're not criminals. We don't do anything illegal. We don't have drugs. We don't have alcohol on the premises. Don't get me wrong. Once in a while, there'll be somebody in the parking lot. There'll be a mistake made. And we've learned from that. We haven't had any problems recently, and I want you guys to, what I'm asking is for just, an opportunity to fix that. We showed you good faith, 6 months, 12 o'clock. We've done everything you've asked us to do. All we're asking is for an opportunity to run our business the way it's meant to be ran. It's a nightlife business. There are every other city doesn't really have a limitation. There are a few. But there are other lounges like within the city of Sterling Heights, which is just a mile away from my location, where they stay open till 2 a.m. on weekdays and 4 on weekends. We don't want that. All we're asking is for our hours to be when, from the morning or noon, 3, 5, whenever we decide to open till at least 2 a.m. That's all we ask. 2 a.m. so we can operate our business the way our businesses were meant to be operated. This is a nightlife business. It's not, people come in, they smoke, they drink, or, they drink pop, of course, waters. They hang out with their friends, they study. There's nothing wrong. Several of your officers have even been inside of the lounge and they've seen the atmosphere. We don't have a wild atmosphere. We have couches, TVs, and music that plays sometimes on the weekend. It goes up a little bit more than it should, but that's always controllable. All we're asking is for an opportunity to do things the way that we meant to do them. As far as the risk on hookah smoking, that's not what we're here for. We're here for our business hours. Whatever effect it has on a human being or their body, that's the risk that they take. We don't make people come to our business. They choose to. People choose to smoke. Just like cigarettes are legal, people choose to smoke cigarettes. You can't force them not to. If they want to go to a lounge, they're going to go to a lounge. All we're asking you to do is allow us to operate our business. I have a 5-year lease.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bashar Dimitri, business owner, to speak also on I-5.
Hi, I'm Bashar Dimitri. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a graduate of Wiley E. Groves High School of Birmingham and of the James Madison College at Michigan State University. I'm not a criminal. I have nothing on my record. I've never been acquitted of any crime. I've never been accused of any crime. I have no points on my license. I had one accident when I was 16, 3 months into driving, and that's about it. I have a very clean record. The problem is, and it's not the police officer's fault. The gentleman who comes in, he checks on us. That's what he's told to do. When he comes in and he checks on us with his flashlights, he's looking under the furniture, looking in the back room, this and that. That portrays an image of criminality upon us that we are not, And that's hurting our business, that's hurting our image with our customers, that's scaring our customers, and it's making them think, okay, what are these guys hiding? And you know, when he says, can I have a look around, I'm not going to say no, because that would indicate like we have something to hide. You know, he's been doing this now because he's told to. I don't blame the officer. Every week, every 2 weeks, and looks around, and they have yet to find anything, you know. I invite you to come with dogs, with whatever you want, to look for whatever you want. All we are doing is selling hookah tobacco. All due respect to the first gentleman who smoked, or who spoke, someone actually inhaling hookah and exhaling hookah for an hour straight might be the equivalent of 200 cigarettes. But I've done my own research. I couldn't explain the first time because it took me off by surprise, because I'd never heard of higher rates of lung disease in Middle Eastern countries as compared to the U.S. They've always had the highest rates of lung disease. Smoking cigarettes in other parts of Indochina, places where they smoke cigarettes, have the highest rates of lung disease. Reason is the FDA clearly states 0.05% nicotine. Cigarettes have 0.5% nicotine, 10 times the amount, plus it's just nicotine, molasses, tobacco, you know? That's all it is. The cigarettes have about 60 some odd carcinogens, rat poison, battery oil, I don't know what's in them. It doesn't impair your driving. Yes, it is unhealthy. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm not saying smoking hookah is healthy. I'm just saying let's not exaggerate the risk here. So if you're going to be an alcoholic, if that's got a lot more risk to it. We're not doing anything illegal. We provide a safe place for people to come, to 18 to 21-year-olds to come, to do something that's legal. They're not inhaling it for the whole hour. They might do it for 15 minutes. They pass it around. It doesn't spread herpes because we've got, you know, different tips that are disposable, that everybody has their own. I don't know what else you want us to say. I mean, what else you'd rather have your kids doing? When I, in 2007, graduate of Wiley E. Groves High School, richer school than this, Troy system, there was one girl who died of a drug overdose, who was doing I don't know what at another kid's parents' house who wasn't there. You know.
Thank you.
So, something to think about.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Strasberg, business owner, to speak on I-5. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. Some 8 years ago...
Speak into the microphone, please. Thank you.
Certainly. Some 8 years ago, I sold real estate in the city of Troy. And part of our big campaign was the safest city and the wonderful school system and everything that came along with Troy. I chose to put my business in Troy. I'm not, unfortunately, a resident of Troy, but was absolutely certain that that was where I wanted my business to be. Not an easy task to do, open up a business in the economy. And my store, Fabric Affair, which is in the Long Lake Plaza on Long Lake and John R. We reside right next to a hookah lounge. And I understand smoking is bad for you, drinking is bad for you, hookah. There aren't strip clubs in Troy either. There are strip clubs in Detroit, and that's because the residents of Troy and the people of Troy don't want to have strip clubs in Troy. I can absolutely tell you that if I had a positive reaction to what was happening with the hookah lounges, I wouldn't be here today. I have a million things I could do outside of speaking in front of you today and praying that you do not allow these hookah lounges to continue to operate business until 2 o'clock in the morning, until 1 o'clock in the morning. I would like to see them not able to operate at all. We have not seen any positive effects of it, not one. The tips that he speaks of that are on the pipes are strewn about the entire parking lot. We pick up on a daily basis alcohol bottles, not just trash, alcohol bottles. There was over 100 cartridges, CO2 cartridges, that were confiscated, not confiscated, but picked up from the person that cleans up the trash in our plaza. And that's what children use to suck out the gas and get high. We have had police report after police report. We have had marijuana and other substances that have been collected from the parking lot. They don't just go inside, smoke for 15 minutes and leave. They stay around the entire parking lot. The foul language and the threats, the behavior is non-ending. It was not only 3 days ago, and I had to call the Troy police because at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when it was a beautiful sunny day, I had a motorcycle fly down the sidewalk, on our sidewalk in front of our door, to park in front of the hookah lounge. My clientele, which may be 60, 70, 80 years old, if they had been walking out of the door from my business at that time, they could have been seriously injured and or killed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarmad Yosef, business owner, to speak on I-5. Good evening.
Good evening. I mean, everybody can come up here and talk about how bad smoking is. End of the day, we don't force anybody to come and smoke hookah. Nobody forces anybody to smoke cigarettes, and nobody forces anybody to drink alcohol. It's a choice. You can talk about how bad hookah is, and I can tell you how bad McDonald's is. You know, everything has a good, everything has a bad. Just like everybody else, we're a business. We're a business, and we're struggling now. Times have been really hard for us. 2 hours, believe it or not, makes a huge difference. I wish I was a daytime business where maybe I could go home at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's not what we are. We're in nighttime business. We've been given a set of rules for 6 months, and we've been doing our best and going beyond to follow every single rule that's been given to us. But, you know, as a business owner, you know, it's tough. Everybody knows the business is hard to do in this economy. And when you're limited on time and what you can have come in and out, that makes it even worse. I see drunk people going into Coney Island every single night. You know, that doesn't make the Coney Island a bad place. It's just sometimes that's what happens. Bad people are around this world. That's going to happen everywhere we go. All we ask is just give us a chance to make things right. We did everything we could these past 6 months to survive, but business has declined. As he said, 50%. That's not just for him. That's for all of us. We all have an overhead. We all have families. We all have to make money to survive. Because if this stays the way it is at 12 o'clock, there's just no way. It's literally impossible. It's set up for us to lose. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Fadi Zatu to speak on I-5. Going to pass. James Werpatinsky, Troy resident, to speak on I-5. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff, city residents. I find it interesting that we've almost stamped out cigarette smoking. You pretty much can't smoke anywhere, I don't think, anymore other than in your house or outside. And yet, now hookah lounges are coming into the picture, and it just doesn't make any sense. As the doctor said, and as Nancy Morrison said about 6 months ago when she was up here, there's all kinds of studies that say that hookah it's even worse than cigarettes. And cigarettes are pretty bad, I know, because I used to smoke them. And why you want to even consider having it open late is beyond me. The memo that kind of supports it says that many of the incidents happened after midnight, and since the last 6 months, they've been having to close at midnight. The incidents are down like 50%. So to me, that's justification to keep it at midnight, not to extend it back to 1 o'clock again. So it kind of makes sense. They're also trying to be awful friendly to hookah owners and stuff, and you know, I appreciate business like anybody else, but you know, there are businesses that make sense and there are businesses that don't. And, you know, to say, well, I sell poison so you can commit suicide, so don't blame me, that's a false bunch of garbage as far as I'm concerned. So I implore you all to turn this request down if I had my druthers, there wouldn't be any hookah lounges in the city. And I actually, that's what I'd like to actually see you do. But for sure, don't extend these anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak. Our next order of business is City Council, City Administration response or reply to public comment. I know I-5 will be discussed later on in our agenda, so I'll reserve my comments until that time. Anyone else wish to speak now, though? Okay. We have no postponed items. We will move to regular business. Our first order of business is boards and committee appointments, mayoral appointments. There are no appointments for either mayoral appointments or city council appointments. I-2 is boards and committee nominations. First order of business is mayoral nominations, and I would like to place if I can find it, into nomination I haven't approached anybody on council to fill the seat held by Maureen McGinnis as the alternate. Councilwoman Huderich doesn't have any opposition. I'd like to nominate her this evening as an alternate. It's a great place to start on boards and committees as an alternate. So I will place in the nomination Councilwoman Huderich for that position for the term that expires 11/13/2017.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Fleming that we nominate Councilwoman Huderich for Local Development Finance Authority, LDFA, appointment alternate for the term that expires 11/13/2017. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but if you want to decline at this time, I would understand.
Actually, I think I understand the rationale, and I am on the spot, thinking on the spot, but that seems to be a logical step for me to take.
I'm also an alternate on that, and it doesn't meet that often, and it's kind of a nice place to start.
I agree.
Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the Planning Commission, and I would like to place into nomination Donald Edmonds, who asked for reappointment for the term that expires 12/31/2016. I would also like to nominate Thomas Krent for the term that expires 12/31/2016, who has asked for reappointment. And my third appointment or nomination, I would like to appoint Steve Gottlieb for the other vacant position for the term that expires 12/31/2016.
Second.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Campbell that we place into nomination Donald Edmonds, Steve Gottlieb, Thomas Krent for Planning Commission terms to expire 12/31/16. Discussion, and if I could start, I didn't nominate Edward Kempen, whose term expired 12/31/13. He did not respond whether he wanted to be reappointed or not. And Steve Gottlieb ran for City Council He got almost 5,000 votes, I think, for city council. He had put his application in for the Planning Commission prior to that, has wanted to be part of Troy, and I think it's a great place for him to start, so that's why I nominated him. Any other discussion?
Mayor, just,
Councilman Fleming?
I think Steve Gottlieb would do a great job. Just to be clear, though, Mr. Kempen, you contacted him, he didn't respond, or?
I contacted the city clerk, and what we do is a couple months beforehand, we send correspondence to persons on boards and committees whose terms expire in 2 months. She received correspondence from Donald Edmonds, Thomas Krent. She did not receive any correspondence back from Edward Kempen. Councilman Teets?
You didn't call him?
I did not.
You didn't send him an email?
I did not. And I'm not here to tell you that I would nominate him anyways, but
I just wanted to clarify that.
I did not.
You didn't reach out to him. He didn't file paperwork at some point in the past, in the last 2 months, right?
He didn't respond to the letter. Correct.
Okay.
Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, I'm going to call on Mayor Pro Tem Henderson for City Council nominations.
The first board is the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees and a Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust. And I would like to forward William Need to serve the term that expires December 31st, 2016.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilman Fleming that we nominate William Need for the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees / Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust position for the term to expire 12/31/16. Is there discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
The next board is the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, and I'd like to forward Jim Campbell and Mark Miller for terms expiring November 10th, 2015.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilman Fleming that we nominate James Campbell and Mark Miller for the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG, for the terms to expire 11/10/15. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. I3 is there is no closed session requested this evening. Thank you. I4 is City Council Rules of Procedure. City Clerk Bittner, you made a minor change to the cycle for Mayor Pro Tem, I see, on the rules and regulations.
That's correct, Mayor. The council is required to review their rules annually, and item I4A is the adoption of the council rules. There is a red line version you have with your packet that just simply shows an update to the rotation for Mayor Pro Tem to reflect the current council members. Also, I4B are the revisions that Councilmember Fleming submitted to propose for just revisions for the public comment portion.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move the resolution to get it on the table for discussion?
Mayor,
Councilman Fleming.
I move the resolution I4B as printed.
Just B?
A and B.
A and B.
A and B, B to amend A, to adopt, and B, to amend the rules of procedure.
As printed as the document on the table.
Yes.
Moved by Councilman Fleming and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve I-4A and B as presented. I had the printed copy that was placed on the table this evening. Discussion, Councilman Fleming?
Thank you, Mayor. The amendment I'm recommending here and proposing, I want to give Troy residents and Troy businesses priority when coming to speak on items that are on the agenda or not on the agenda. In the past, I've been on the council for 8 years. From time to time, there are issues that garner some concern or recognition from people outside the city of Troy, be it the state level or the national level. And that, from time to time, occupies the microphone time during public comment for items on the agenda or not on the agenda. I think the citizens of Troy and the businesses of Troy should get first priority. They should be able to speak. Anyone has a freedom to speak, and this council will listen. But what I'm proposing, if you're not a resident of Troy or a business owner in Troy, you're moved to the end of the agenda. You get to speak after the residents and the businesses speak, okay? At that point, the council generally doesn't comment. But that's my proposal, is basically to favor Troy residents and Troy businesses, give them priority on items that are on the agenda, not on the agenda, and not someone that lives outside this community or outside this county or outside this state even.
Thank you. Further discussion? I will support that language change. I think it is important that we listen to the residents and the businesses first. So I will vote yes on that. Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Our next item of business is I-5, a recommendation, 6-month review of the amendments to the Troy City Code, Chapter 77, smoking lounges, hours of operation. Introduction by Chief of Police Gary Mayer and his staff. I consider Nancy part of the staff.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, with me tonight is Nancy Morrison of the Troy Community Coalition. As you're all aware, we've worked very closely, the PD works very closely with the Troy Community Coalition, and I wanted to be able to say a few words tonight. I also have Sergeant Josh Jones, who was assigned to coordinate this matter for the police department for the 6-month review. Dr. Fawaz already came up and spoke in the beginning. We met him at a seminar that we attended at Royal Oak Beaumont Hospital regarding hookahs. You may recall that prior to May of 2013, we had several incidents at hookah establishments in the city of Troy. They were attracting large crowds, which resulted in overflow parking into nearby businesses. They generated multiple incidents requiring a police response, including a shooting, fights, drug and alcohol possession, noise, traffic, and parking complaints. There were no restrictions on the hours of operation for hookahs at that time, and many of the incidents occurred after midnight. On May 8th of 2013, the council voted to amend City Ordinance Chapter 77. City Council indicated the amendments to Chapter 77 would be reviewed in 6 months, which is why we're here today. Since the revisions of Chapter 77 took effect, we've experienced an overall decrease of 52% in calls for service at our hookah establishments. We attached documents to the City Council action item that summarize incidents pre and post ordinance. We recognize the current hookah establishments have made an investment in their Troy businesses. They've asked for extended hours to attract customers, and I'm going to let Nancy Morrison address some of the issues, and then Sergeant Jones.
Thank you. Just a couple of the comments that I wanted to make this evening is that since the smoking lounge ordinance and its revisions are public information, I have provided the ordinance and its revisions to other cities and other coalitions across Michigan. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but of course Troy was one of the first cities that saw the necessary changes that needed to be made, but so many other cities want to follow in Troy's footsteps. From a prevention standpoint, the smoking lounge ordinance and its revisions are an effective environmental strategy. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but being in the prevention field, I am. And so we have decreased the risk factors, but we have also increased the protective factors by limiting the hours of operation, having the age restrictions, and then also having the parking restrictions written into the ordinance. So those were just a couple of things that I wanted to comment on, but I also wanted to mention, I don't know if you're aware, but tobacco has an addictive rate of 24%, and cocaine has an addictive rate of 25%, heroin an addictive rate of 20%, and alcohol an addictive rate of 17%. So I just wanted to share that information with you because I think we can all agree that tobacco is a highly addictive product, and it's important that you prevent the young people in your community from starting to smoke.
Thank you, Nancy. Then Sergeant Jones spearheaded the organization of the efforts in the police department. I wanted him to briefly describe that, and then we'll be open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
And I will be real brief. We, as a police department, the hookah lounges opened, we did see quite a few calls for service, a big increase, and mostly during the nighttime hours. Shortly after that, we asked our officers to do simply provide extra patrol to these locations to try to provide an officer presence and provide some safety to the business owners and residents in that area. They were complaining of a myriad of things, including reckless driving and littering and narcotics use. After Chapter 77 was put into place, we organized a little bit more of we had an organized plan for our officers to take a look at these 3 hookah establishments in the city of Troy. We asked them to continue doing extra patrol on a shift level for afternoon shift and midnight shift, and I assigned 1 officer to each location and asked them to do a bi-monthly inspection, and we kind of modeled that off of how we do our liquor inspections in the city of Troy to make it the same thing. We wanted them to go in, make contact with the business owners, managers, ensure that they're following the state guidelines for smoking establishments, and make sure there's no problem going on at that time when they're there. So 1 officer did that bi-monthly. We continued extra patrols on a shift level, and since Chapter 77 was put into place, I can say our calls for service and our issues at all 3 hookah lounges has decreased significantly, like Chief Mayor said. And I think that actually is in part from our response, and also I do believe that the hookah owners and managers themselves that have done a very good job of doing what's been asked of them and working with us. So.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I've been to all 3 of the establishments myself. I spoke to either the manager on duty or the owners. They've all been very professional. They've treated the police department very well. They've asked for extended hours to attract customers in a spirit of compromise that merited consideration. The recommendation from the police department is that we retain almost all of the existing ordinance, but we recommend modification of Chapter 77 to allow the hours of operation to be extended to 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. We're trying to compromise with the business owners. At this point, we stand ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions? Councilman Campbell?
Chief, are you going to, for this extra hour, do you still anticipate your officers going in for the extra hour on weekends and doing the same type of checks that you're doing now?
Yes, sir.
Continue then?
Yes, we will.
Do you anticipate that the crime is going to stay exactly where it's at?
I hesitate to make any guarantees on crime staying exactly where it's at. We'll do the best we can in that area.
Questions for the police department?
I have a question.
Councilwoman Huderick?
Thank you, Mayor. Related to the daytime concern that was raised here. I know the specific discussion is about the extended hours, but the gentleman that commented about regulating business, I understand, but we are responsible for the safety of our citizens, the people that go in and out of our businesses, our business owners. Are you seeing a daytime issue as well, or?
A lot at Blue Moon specifically, because of the location, I think, and it's a smaller parking lot. We did have some issues immediately after they opened.
Just speak into the mic, please. That's where the recording is. Thank you.
Sorry. We did have some, early afternoon. It usually would start around 5 o'clock, and some complaints from the businesses in that same shopping complex. But the majority of it, the vast majority of it, was at nighttime.
I guess the further question is, can I follow up?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to the rules. Are we helping the businesses, the strip mall owners, the hookah lounge owners manage that safety process in those earlier day hours as well?
Are we helping them? I think that our response since the hookah bars open in the city of Troy has been geared towards working with the hookah lounges themselves and the business owners that are adjacent to them. The Mist Hookah is adjacent to Tony's Pizzeria. They had some parking issues. We worked with, as council may remember, worked with Tony's Pizzeria on getting some signage up there and helping out them on that parking issue. So yeah, I think at the police department's end, we're working with the hookah lounges, bar owners, managers, the businesses around them, and the residents as well. So,
Councilman Teets?
Yes, I'm puzzled because it seems like it's a if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of situation. The issue existed where there was violence, drugs, and things like that going on. We had a change of policy. The policy was effective. It decreased those issues, but now we're going to change it to increase the amount of time it's open at the time when that crime was happening. Are we simply just trying to compromise for the sake of compromising, I guess? I don't, if I had to explain to a citizen why we would extend the hours for these lounges when that was the time when those incidents happened, I don't know if I could look them in the eye and give them a good reason why those businesses need that extra hour, I guess. I mean, give me something to hold on to here other than it's compromise for compromise's sake. I guess that's what I'm trying to get a hold of, because I'm sorry, Chief, to put you on the spot, but I listened to the other business owners with the Blue Moon. There are 4 other business owners aside from the business owner that was here today complaining about the hookah lounge. I mean, the residents, I have not received many emails where people are excited about hookah lounges in their neighborhood. And then, this wasn't brought up tonight, but other cities are clamping down on the hours. Like I saw in Auburn Hills this morning, they're restricting the 12 hours. So I don't mean to put you on a spot or argue one way or another, but is there any thoughts? I know I'm putting you difficult. Answer a huge question with a short answer. So
it's not a problem.
If I could interrupt, just because that's very valid, that's extremely valid points, and to be quite candid, I've had the business owners come to me. We received numerous emails from them asking us to be more lenient with the hours. I don't think there's anybody here at the table that maybe thinks this is a healthy way to, but that's really not our decision. Our decision is to deal with the hours. But before I knew that Auburn Hills had just passed a very similar ordinance and was looking at passing an ordinance, and I know other cities are doing the same. I had gone to the chief and said, in the spirit of cooperation, do you think maybe we could, because there are only 3 businesses in Troy, we're not talking about a lot of businesses. There are 3 businesses, maybe we can help if this is a legitimate concern that we are stifling business from them. And I'm not convinced that we are, quite frankly, especially if all of the other communities start to follow suit and everybody closes at noon or midnight. That would be a moot point from that day forward. The playing field would be level, and that would be it. So I really feel uncomfortable putting the chief on the spot.
I didn't realize I didn't.
So I wanted to kind of jump in and just say that I'm the one that kind of went and tried to find a middle ground that maybe we could just, but after listening to some of the businesses that are directly affected, and whether 1 hour is really going to accomplish, quite honestly, I'm at the point of not supporting the additional hour now because of what the business owners have told me, that that's not going to help at all. That's not going to do anything for them. So, maybe we should just keep it where it is. But I thought I would jump in and kind of save the chief if I could, because it was really me. If there are any other questions, Councilman Fleming?
Not really a question, just a comment, but basically the police department's done an excellent job. But we had these business owners before us 6 months ago, and at that time they were pleading to be open until 2 o'clock and how it was affecting their business. What this council told them, we're going to give you 6 months, the police department is going to monitor, you're in control of your own destiny, is basically what we said to these business owners. You clean up your act, you come back in 6 months, we'll reconsider. That's where we are. From what I'm hearing and what the chief has reported tonight, while everything may not be perfect, these business owners have stepped up, and in the hours they're allowed to be open now, they've cleaned up their act. They're not having the problems, the complaints are down. Not everybody's happy, but they're certainly going in the right direction. The question is, if we allow this compromise and open up another hour, is that going to open up another problem? We don't know. But that's what I'm dealing with. But what I can say, what I'm hearing reported, and from looking at the reports, and you put them out regularly, thank you very much, the incidences have reduced. Well, we may not like what goes on there. We can't control what people do, just like going to McDonald's or whatever. But they have made an effort. I think they've made an effort. The business owners to control their own destiny. So I'm open to considering, but I want to hear what the rest of the council has to say.
Do we have any other questions for the police department? No. For the police department?
No, just a comment. No.
Let's move it back to the table.
Okay.
So we can have some discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. If somebody would move the resolution, get it down the table for discussion.
We'll move the resolution as written.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Campbell and supported by Councilman Teets that we...
Is that the resolution, extend the hours?
That's the one
I do
that's...
not want to extend the hours, so
Well, you don't have to. This is to get it for discussion.
I won't even discuss.
Okay.
I'll let someone else discuss.
I'll support.
Okay. Moved by Councilman Campbell and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson that we move the resolution as printed. Now we can have some discussion. Councilman Pennington.
I have not had any calls or emails from any residents that supported the expansion of the hours of the hookah lounges, but I did get many calls and emails from residents that are opposed to the extension of the hours. Right, we are not regulating what people do inside a hookah lounge. That is, their own business, but our responsibility is to the citizens of Troy. One of the residents made a comment that since the ordinance changed to midnight, since we changed it to closing at midnight, crime, the crime is down. So why Why fix something if it's not broken?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
I was involved in a conversation with the chief as well about the, moving to Friday and Saturday night hours, extending another hour, and I think that kind of dovetailed with the report that we got about, how bars operate and some of the weekend hours that bars operate. So, I'm always pro-business because I know what it takes being a business owner and a past business owner as well. It takes a lot of money to run a business and to get it started, especially in your first few months or years. I get that. What my reservation initially, when we talked about this 6 months ago, was, in fact, the shootings, the crime element that this type of business seemed to have brought with it to the city of Troy. And I'm vehemently opposed to any business, I don't care what you call it or what they promote or do, to bring that element to the city. Listening to the other business owner that adjoins one of the hookahs, with the litter, specific litter about the whippets, I think is the street term that they use, that kids inhale. I have some experience with that as well, not personally, but in my family, we've thought I'd clarify that. But I've seen what those kind of things can do and the destruction that drugs in general can do to a family. And to just wholeheartedly and open-armed invite that into a community is just, I think it's irresponsible. And to Councilman Teet's point, we clamped down a bit on them 6 months ago, and all of a sudden we have good acting businesses. So did we do the right thing then? I think an argument could be made that yes, we did.
Well, you make a good point.
Councilman Pennington, if I could, I'll speak and then...
Go ahead.
We'll, I wasn't sure if anybody else wanted to speak. No? I support the comments that have been made by the table. And one of the concerns that I have is that I believe other communities are starting to follow suit with Troy. From what I've been told, there's been almost every other city wants to see our ordinance and see how it's written. And for us to change it at this point doesn't make any sense when I hear the business people tell me that it's not going to help their business to be open till 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. So I also think that there's a good possibility that their business is not doing as well as it has been doing because of the education that is going on amongst the Chaldean community, the Middle Eastern community that are vehemently opposed to hookah. So I think this is probably a trend that is going to trend to closing at midnight, and I've changed my opinion, and I think we should just leave it alone. Councilman Pennington.
Well, I was just going to say, Dave made a point, Councilman Henderson made a point that made me think of something. I've been in the city of Troy for 45 years, and I can't remember another type of business coming into the city that brought in shootings, fights, drug and alcohol problems, and just to let them expand hours just to as a compromise, I just can't support that. So I will be voting no.
Well, how about if we just amend the resolution to, is it possible, City Clerk Bittner, to just amend it?
What?
Or if we vote no, will it just stay?
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion. If this motion fails, the ordinance stays where it is.
Okay. Any further discussion on I-5? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Slater?
No.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Fleming?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
No.
Councilmember Hoderick?
No.
Councilmember Pennington?
No.
Councilmember Teets?
Nope.
Motion fails. Our next order of business is I-6. Steve, if we could just wait a minute while some residents are leaving. I-6 is the approval of Third Amendment to MDOT capital contract for Troy Multimodal Transit Facility, MDOT contract number 2011-0231/A2. And Steve Vandett, the city engineer, is ready. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Item I-6 is a proposed amendment to our capital contract with MDOT that brings back grant funds in the amount of $1,758,000 for the Transit Center project. These funds will be used to ensure that the city maintains continuous possession of the Transit Center parcel. And the next item on the agenda relates to that issue. The funds are part of the original $8.5 million grant from FRA to MDOT for the Transit Center, of which approximately $6.6 million was previously committed and already used for the design and construction of the Transit Center. The total MDOT contract with the amendment is $8,373,736, and the Transit Center continues to be 100% funded with federal ERA funds. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have with regard to this item.
Questions for Steve Vandett? Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Somebody like to move the resolution for discussion?
I move the resolution forward as written.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Campbell and supported by Councilwoman Huderick that we approve I-6 as printed. Discussion. Councilman Fleming?
Mayor, basically what this does in a nutshell is increases the amount of money the city has, and we're dealing with that with the next resolution, to negotiate property settlement without dipping into taxpayer funds. Money that was going to be spent anyway by the Federal Railway Administration. So we're taking funds that were already committed to this type of project to ensure we don't dip into City of Troy taxpayer funds for any settlement we have to or may incur in the future to acquire title of this property, correct?
Correct. Further discussion? Councilman Teets?
I just think it is worthy of note that we should thank Mayor Slater and Councilman Fleming, because unless they would have come up with a compromise reduced amount, we would be up a creek without a paddle, because we've had the increase for the crash wall testing, and now for purchasing the land, or pardon me, for property acquisition contingency. So we're back at the original amount, or nearly back at the original amount, and so, you know, where we are.
I appreciate that, but we were also approaching the FTA potential solution also, but this makes it much easier. Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. I-7 is Grand Sakwa Properties Transit Center with an introduction by City Attorney Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And actually, this is a resolution that was drafted by our outside legal counsel, Peter Webster, who is in the audience if you had any questions. But essentially, it is allowing us to proceed to condemn whatever interest it is that Grand Sakwa has. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for City Attorney Bloom, or I know I saw
There it is.
hiding in the back. I don't blame you. Councilman Campbell?
This is basically all the things that we have talked about in other meetings about how we're going to proceed with this. This is just a culminating letter, basically, right, to move forward against
This is moving forward, making an offer initially, and then if condemnation is necessary, then pursuing that option.
Thanks.
This offer that's being made will be expended from the FRA
Correct. It's federally, it will be within the federal funding.
if they accept the offer.
And that's why we had the MDOT contract approved first, so that
Correct.
that increases the contract amount.
Correct. Any other questions? Somebody like to move the resolution? Councilman Campbell?
I'll move the resolution and the letterhead as written on the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Campbell and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve I-7 as printed. Further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
This property acquisition has placed me personally, and I'm sure maybe a couple other council members, in a kind of a sticky spot, because we're in a situation where back in November and December of 2011, when this passed on council, I expressed concern about the fact that we didn't own the property, and that was the reason that I voted no on this. But you know, that ship has sailed, and I've gotten 100% behind this thing since. And you know, it benefits none of us to jump in the way of the train, so to speak, to stall it, stop it. We have way too much invested in this project. And I've made a commitment to myself that, you know, I would do everything in my power to try to make this transit center thrive. You know, to what extent I can involve myself in, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to vote yes on this, but I just want people out there to understand that, you know, I'm voting yes, but, you know, we also had these concerns 2 years ago, and, you know, we shouldn't even be talking about this at this stage of the game. Again, that said, I'm voting yes because I support the process, and I support the fact that we need to make this, we need to get this property, we need to get this transit center up and running and open so that we can minimize, you know, our costs overall. So just want to make that clear.
Appreciate those comments.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Hoderick?
Councilman Henderson, I do appreciate the position you're in, and I also appreciate the fact that you and others, as this project did go forward, it does behoove the entire community in our region to get behind it and move it forward. At the time the debate was on, we had the governor, we had both Detroit newspapers, we had a groundswell of business voices advocating for this project. And I think this community, standing behind it and moving it forward and working hard to make the best decisions it can to keep it moving forward for it to be successful, shows that we do recognize our role in the region, our role in the state, and how we can be part of a vision that has been cast. It's unfortunate that this anchor is holding back a success story from moving forward. And I appreciate the efforts that this council, staff, the legal counsel that supported us have made to move forward in the best interests of this. Reputationally for our region, this is important to move forward. The ship has sailed, the train is trying to leave the station, and we should try to help it. And I couldn't agree with Councilman Henderson more. It's unfortunate that's where we are, but we have a beautiful transit center. It is part of a bigger picture than just us. And we have a chance, all of us involved in this, to move it forward successfully. And I hope that we will.
Any other comments? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
No.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there anyone on council that wishes to pull a consent agenda item? Councilman Fleming?
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Fleming and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson that we approve all items on the consent agenda. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Does anybody need a break?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Need a break?
You do? We'll be in recess till 9:08. Back in session. Our next order of business is memorandums and future council agenda items. It's the best I can do. If everyone could just move up to the mic a little bit. And if you could move up forward, it would help a lot, too. So. This isn't the third grade where everybody sits in the back. Or church. Or church. There are none submitted for any future council agenda items. It moves us to public comment for items not on the agenda. And please pay attention to the rules. Our first speaker is Suzanne Delici, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and other city executives. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My comments are in regards to the pending application for the 92-bed senior assisted living and memory care facility at the corner of Square Lake and Adams. The zoning ordinance text document located on your website states that senior assisted living facilities are allowed in districts designated R1A. However, convalescent centers are not allowed. On page 27 of this document, under senior housing, it says, quote, assisted living, a dependent elderly housing facility without cooking facilities and only central dining service. Limited medical care is available, end quote. The blueprints for the facility show 2 large areas labeled kitchen, and usually kitchens are used for cooking. On page 27, it says, quote, convalescent home, a medical establishment providing accommodation and care for aged or infirmed persons or for those who are bedfast or needing considerable nursing care, end quote. Based on these definitions, limited medical care is permitted, however, considerable nursing care is not. I think it could be argued that a memory care facility implies people will need considerable care, and the blueprint showed 2 large nursing stations, which also implies they'll be offering a considerable amount of care. In the Planning Commission meeting on October 22nd, Mr. Cavalier stated that the facility would be for senior assisted living, period. He further stated that the facility would offer no ancillary services. My main point here is that large medical establishments are not permitted in the R1A district, and I believe a memory care facility can and should be considered a medical establishment because people with diagnosed mental disorders and diseases have to see psychiatrists frequently, and psychiatrists are medical doctors. Given that the developers claim they are not offering any ancillary services, are they implying that every resident is going to go off-site for all medical needs above what a nurse can provide? Even if the developers don't employ the medical health professionals directly, the services most likely will be performed on-site, which further illustrates the assumption that business above and beyond assisted living and limited medical care will be taking place at that facility. In summary, the planning board is worried that they'll get sued if they don't approve it because it appears to meet zoning requirements. However, it appears to me that the facility will entail a lot more than the developers are saying it will, and some of the services it plans to offer are not allowed in the R1A district. If this is the case, then wouldn't the city be in a position to be sued by people if they do approve it? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Robert Tortolat, Troy resident. Did I butcher your name?
Yes, everybody does.
No.
It's quite all right.
I try not to.
All right, no notes. Just, I don't even know how much of this has come before your board, if you know anything about it at all. But
We know about it, but the Planning Commission is probably the place that you want to...
Well, we'll be there tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. But just another opportunity to address you guys, because eventually everything goes through here, as it should. I don't know how much you know, but they're trying to jam this 92-bed facility on this little corner over there. And they could call it this to get it through. It ain't really what it is. It's going to end up, killing this neighborhood. And the thing is, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So just remember that when you vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger Howard, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. Members of the council, I just want to make a couple of points.
Allowing this facility at this site to go forward, I think, in my opinion, sets a tremendous precedent and has terrible implications for the entire city, for every residential, single-family neighborhood. His neighborhood, ours, anyone's in the future. We have in our neighborhood a 3.5-acre parcel right now that is for sale. I suppose that this could legally happen there, so that someone comes in and puts an assisted living facility right in the middle of our neighborhood. And I only make mention that I don't understand how assisted living, senior living, and I agree, I still don't know what this facility is going to be. But I don't know how it made it into the permissible use designation of R1A through R1E when there are many similar enterprises, as I read the list, that did not make it in permissible use. Now, it's my understanding that the City Council does have the authority to amend the Troy zoning ordinance. I just want you to hear about this. I hope you think about it and take it under advisement to prevent this, to preserve, protect, and safeguard our neighborhoods. And I refer to Section 4.06 of the zoning ordinance document. The intent of the R1A through R1E districts is to provide areas for single-family dwellings with the primary distinction being a range of densities implemented through varying lot sizes. The R1A through R1E districts are further intended to preserve and improve upon the quality of residential neighborhoods. They do allow for other uses. Public parks is one that is appropriate. I just fail to see that this improves our neighborhood or any residential area in Troy. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Adams, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm not here to explain why this facility shouldn't be here, because I've almost spoke with all of the views on your telephones and that, but basically our house is 130 feet from this facility. And I'm here tonight to more or less try to make everybody of Troy aware of what is happening, because tonight it's in our geographical area. In February, it could be in Emerald Lakes, could be in Beach Forest. And I believe that who are ears and voice and eyes of us residents is the council. And I really hope, as what Roger mentioned, that the council, or if the planning board or whoever, if the council could speak for the residents and look into the assisted living facilities being built in these R1A through E residential areas. They're a 24-hour commercial business. And I know there is nobody here on this council or the residents behind me that would ever want to live in a nice, quiet, beautiful residential area and have a 24-hour commercial business within 130 feet of your front door. People talk about Troy being Troy, the city of tomorrow. One thing we don't want is people saying Troy, the city of yesterday, as people in their nice residential areas have to tolerate these 24-hour commercial businesses. And if it takes some residents to get something going, please call me. You all have my phone number. I've called you all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Richard Peters, Troy resident. Good evening.
Hey, Mayor, Council. Speaking of health care, good evening. I'd first like to wish folks home and abroad a happy and safe holiday, their relatives, etc. There seems to be a lot of aspersions and false fables, much like the dormant volcano that spews lava on the unsuspecting public about the Affordable Care Act. First, I'd like to offer a suggestion. A national insurance commissioner who has powers much like a state insurance commissioner, only on a national level. Second, the Robinson-Patman Act, when should be maybe be invoked either by the AG or the FTC to see if these price variations violate the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Finally, see if interest groups are calling in to block other folks from acquiring these policies. How does this relate to Troy? Well, let's take the teacher strike. It might make it easier for the union administrators to reach an accord with regard to pay or as a bargaining chip in lieu thereof. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Mills, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Slater, council members. Back to the subdivision issue. Actually, other speakers have said pretty much what I wanted to say, so I'm not going to plow over old ground there. The one thing I would like to point out is that this facility is literally right in the corner of our subdivision. The back border of it borders an elderly widow's property whose property values can't do anything but go down with a commercial building on the other side of the lot line. And as Mr. Adams pointed out, there's homes within 130 feet of the parking lot and the whole development. It simply might mean meet the letter of the law, but it really doesn't meet the spirit of the law and doesn't belong in a residential neighborhood. There's plenty of commercial areas in Troy that it could be built on. But I also wanted to point out another problem with that corner. Sunoco Oil Company has built a pipeline, an elevated pipeline, a great big, elevated pipeline on that corner, 6 to 8 feet high. And what we're told by the Planning Commission is, well, who knew? Nobody knew what they were doing. They said they were going to fix the pipeline, and all of a sudden this monstrosity exists on the corner of our subdivision. And the Planning Commission seems to be content with, well, now they're going to submit a site plan and tell us how they're going to landscape it. Darn thing shouldn't be there at all. If they had applied for, and Sunoco, you know and I know, knows what they're doing. They build all over the world. They know they've got to come in for a site plan approval. And instead, they just build this thing, and now they figure they can get away with it. If I built something like that, Planning Commissioner, the building department, or somebody would tell me to tear it down and start over and come in for site plan approval like I should have done to begin with. Planning Commission doesn't seem inclined to do that. Their inclination seems to be, well, they're going to tell us how many shrubs they're going to put up around it so you can't see it. Then think about this petroleum pipeline in the front yard of a senior citizen or senior assisted living facility. Does it really belong? Do the two uses belong together? Are they compatible? I'd say no. And so I ask that not only does the assisted living facility get blocked, but the pipeline be required, Sunoco be required to take it down and start the process all over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Denise Smith, Troy resident. James Savage, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. At the last meeting, there was much discussion on sidewalk snow removal. The exemptions solved a big problem for a few residents, but the 1-inch snowfall in 24 hours will, I believe, create a problem throughout the city. I don't think the 1 inch rule is enforceable. Also, many contractors will not come out for less than 3 inches without increasing their seasonal rates. A lot of discussion was on pedestrian safety, especially around the schools. I live in the Wattles Elementary District. There are no sidewalks leading to the schools, or leading to that school. It is dangerous for the kids to walk to school or the bus, even in good weather conditions. After a couple of snowfalls, the road width is down to 1 lane. Heartland Ave, excuse me, is particularly dangerous, as it is the only through street in the whole section. We have a lot of large families in the area, so getting the kids to and from school is a problem for the parents. In fact, we have one family a few years ago, they had a kid in every grade from grade K to 12 in one family. I think the 1-inch snowfall issue will need to be revisited, and I would hope that we can have a comprehensive review of sidewalks with emphasis on child safety and not on recreational. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be talking about that shortly. Aaron Dailuski, Troy resident. That concludes the people that have signed up for, oops. Is that Aaron? Good evening.
Okay, I come here to enlighten you, council, and maybe a few citizens in here. Today I started out my ride riding to Bloomfield Hills. It's roughly a 20-mile ride. Anyhow, I noticed the roads out there needed some lane work for cyclists. There's particular areas out there, but anyways, before I was going out there, my dad had said to me, he said, where are you going? West Bloomfield. And I said, I'll probably make it to a council meeting. And he said, what, Troy? And I was, any of them. I gotta go to any of them. Like, I had to mention something in at the Birmingham City Council, City Commission, whatever it's called there, pardon. I don't mean to be like that, but and mention safety on Woodward. Now the reason I bring up Woodward is because I found it comparable to 16 Mile Road just the other day. I mean, I noticed this big sign on the Kelly Services building, kind of like this color, that says something, best place to work, something along those lines. Anyhow, 16 Mile is home to a lot of, it's a second home to a lot of workers that are from Birmingham, and I ride the route a lot to get to Birmingham on 16 Mile Road. Anyhow, the reason I bring this up, the reason I even show it to you, it's a good magazine. Literally, the title of the brand is Good. Transportation issues, top first highlighted stories, 7 best bike cities. Second story is why Detroit must fail. Now, I don't mean to be like that, but I do also have, I don't mean to say that, I don't mean to startle anybody as why Detroit must fail, but as far as transportation, as far as other cities focusing on pedestrian-friendly activities. And here I got the Sunday newspaper, Detroit focusing on a pedestrian-friendly atmosphere. Sunday newspaper. I've never met you before, man, but you brought up things in the future things for the future and the transit center. I noticed that the transit center was built kind of not to its full potential as to what it could have or what it was designed to be. And I just hope that Troy focuses 100% on trails, not having it. Anyhow, I'm just saying,
Thank you.
to the future.
Thank you.
All that.
I think trails are important. I agree with you.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes those that have signed up to speak this evening. Next is council referrals. M1A is council referral that was moved forward by me, and I'm bringing that forward again because I've gotten some additional information from residents and businesses that I thought was important to bring back to council. As you know, I did not vote for the 1 inch, but I've since learned that most of our senior citizens and those who contract to have their snow removed on their sidewalks and their driveways, it's a minimum of 2 inches with just about everyone that I spoke to. So in some ways, the private sector has established 2 inches as being somewhat of a standard to have snow removed from sidewalks and driveways. So I thought it was important to bring this item back and see if I could get consensus to at least move it to 2 inches, seeing as that is a standard by those in the private sector that think that's the amount that it should be to have snow removed. And the other thing that I learned is our home care program. If we reduce it to 1 inch, that means that we have to send out our home care personnel to have sidewalks and driveways cleared if there's 1 inch. Currently, they're doing 3 inches. But if we change this to 1 inch, I think they're going to be put in a position where they might have to do 1 inch. So I bring it forward. I'm not proposing the 3 inches like was proposed before, but I'm proposing to move it to 2 inches so that we don't put seniors in a position where they're not going to get their sidewalks and their driveways cleared until there's 2 inches, which obviously puts them in violation of the ordinance. Councilman Campbell.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor Slater. I've talked about 7 or 8 people said the same thing. 2 inches is all the guys will start doing the snow at, and so I think to keep our people reasonably happy out there, I think we need to, I would like to see it go back to 2 inches or 3 inches, but 2 inches at the very minimum.
Councilman Teets.
2 inches is fine if that's, but the previous 45 years, when it was 1 snowflake, I mean, it was just, that wasn't an issue that period of time. I guess maybe that's a smart aleck question, but I mean.
I think until we made it.
Until we made an issue that they decided that it would be an issue. Fair enough. Okay, that's fine.
Any other discussion?
We need
Councilwoman Hoderick?
So we need a motion to amend?
No.
What do we need to do?
First, you need to waive the council rules in order to take action on an agenda item that's not on the agenda right now, and then you can move the resolution for the amendment.
Okay. I would move that we amend the rules.
Second.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman.
I'm sorry, it's to waive the rules, just to be clear.
Okay, waive the rules.
Second.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Pennington that we waive the rules. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Councilwoman Huderick, did you want to do that, or would you prefer I do that?
You probably have language already concocted in your mind. Go ahead.
Well, City Attorney Bloom has provided some language.
Mayor, I don't have anything prepared, but if you did want to amend it, your resolution would just simply be to replace the with the 1 inch with a 2 inch, 2 inches. So it would be an amendment reflecting that change.
I will move the amendment that City Attorney Bloom has suggested.
Second.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Campbell that we amend the ordinance as suggested by City Attorney Bloom. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. My computer just died. I'm going to have to go to my written copy. Does anyone, next order of business is reports. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about on the reports?
Actually, it was N1 first, Mayor, council comment.
Okay, let's go to council comments. Anyone have any council comments at this point? Councilman Teetz?
Yes, regarding the assisted living building that's at Adams and Square Lake. Tomorrow's obviously the meeting with the Planning Commission, and at that meeting, one of the things I'll be bringing up is a review of the R1A through E and what things are permissible within zones that are areas that are zoned residential. So it's definitely something that needs some review at this point. So.
Any other comments? I agree with that. I'm not sure at this point what kind of powers City Council has. I would ask that staff, at least, could somebody be prepared tomorrow to at least answer what City Council could do if we chose to change an ordinance? And maybe staff, what at this point, do we have any say whatsoever in what goes on in this R1A? City Attorney Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a case where even if you did amend the ordinances, it would be prospective only. So it would not apply to this particular item. This is an item that is before the Planning Commission, and it is the Planning Commission that has sole authority in what to do with this, whether or not they feel that the ordinance provisions are met. So again, this council is limited with respect to this particular assisted living proposal, but that doesn't prevent you from discussing for future amendments as to what you think is appropriate for in residential areas.
I think we all knew that. I'll reserve my comments for tomorrow. Councilwoman Huderick?
I did have one question. The point was raised a couple of times that this allows for something like this to be in the middle of a neighborhood. And I guess I'd like to clarify, I've heard, no, it has to be on a main road, it couldn't be in the middle of the neighborhood. Is that a question we could answer tonight for, there are people here still listening and will be listening at home about that?
Yes, the current ordinance does not have a locational standard. However, there would be other standards related to traffic which could control or allow the planning commission to not approve it. I mean, if there would be requirements for the facility, let's say to have large trucks come in there, it would be a reason to deny it. But there is not a location requirement at this time for a major thoroughfare.
So in fact, the 3.5-acre piece of land that is in the middle of this neighborhood, if somebody wanted to put an assisted living center there or proposed to, they could under this?
Mr. Miller?
It is a permitted use. However, there would be concern from a traffic engineering standpoint whether there would be reasons to deny it.
Gotcha, got it. Thank you.
Also, this evening, there was some discussion about the Sunoco pipeline, and it's my understanding that they did some work there under the guise that they were just doing a repair, and in fact did violate the procedures that we have in place for a site plan. Is that correct, Mr. Miller?
Council, that is true. The Sunoco did notify the city that they would be doing maintenance all in a variety of communities. That was notified in our engineering department. They did not tell us that they would be doing improvements. We found that out and are requiring them to meet our ordinance. I would state, though, that is a permitted use, that gas line easement, and we don't have much control from a safety standpoint on regulating it. But the fact is, they did not follow our ordinance, and we had to go after the fact and require them to submit plans, landscape plans and things to buffer the improvements in the gas line easement.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yeah, can I ask staff, is there a timeline for Sunoco to complete that work?
Mr. Mayor, that is an administratively approved situation. It does not go to the Planning Commission. I honestly am not 100% sure where we're at, if we're satisfied with their plans, but we could get an update and give that to council.
I think council would appreciate a report as soon as possible.
Mr. Mayor, the note I made was have a full report on assisted living as well as the Sunoco pipeline as soon as possible, so.
Thank you. Any other council comments? No comments on the reports this evening? We will be in recess and reconvene in the boardroom for a study session. We'll be back in a long night. I'm losing my voice. I'm saving it for you, Debbie. We're here for the Troy story, so I'll turn this over to City Manager Kishnick, and this is what everyone's been waiting for months and months. Don't let us down.
I would agree that this is what everyone's been waiting for, but I wanted to start this presentation by reminding everyone where we started. And there's a couple of time frames here that we need to get straight. So there's the time frame of the city, which we're going to take you back pre-2008 up to the day, and then with a forward-looking approach. But then there's a time frame of where I started a year ago today, is what Tim tells me, where in that time we've had a fund balance report that we've sent out to everyone, and then we've had a lot of commentary on that. We had the study sessions last year preceding the budget so that we had a better feeling of where we were going. So this is merely a stop in the road to get together and look back and then look forward and figure out where we want to go. And that's why we've titled this, Where We've Been, Where We Are, and Where We're Going, and it is the Troy story. So with that in mind, it'll be about a 7.5-minute presentation. That takes a little longer to get through all the slides, but I want to introduce the team, and you can see the 2 rows of staff, not to mention Tom and Mark, who are here, who have worked on this, and Lori, to make this really meaningful and a starting point for us to move forward. So with that, Saharish, as the assistant to the city manager, has been the lead on this from the beginning, and she's been working with 3 new people actually, who have been absolute phenomenal additions to our team. And Brenda Carter, who is our intern in our office, is with us. So stand up, Brenda. She comes to us from the MPA program at Oakland University, but she's not just your average Oakland University MPA student. She's on the Pontiac School Board. Her husband, council member Carter, who is also here, is a council member of the city of Pontiac. So they have a wealth of knowledge, and we're so happy to have her on our team, and she's demonstrated her value very quickly. Andrew is our new marketing coordinator, who works part-time with the library and part-time with Cindy Stewart's staff. Andrew's been phenomenal in letting this presentation sort of filter out and then work his magic. And Andrew does have a last name. I think it's Opalewski.
Opalewski.
Okay, that's why I didn't try. But some of the new faces of the Troy staff, and then Anna Cangelosi, who is working technology in the library, who's also, thanks to Kathy Russ, has worked with the team on this project as well. Not to mention Cindy Stewart and Chief and all the other department directors and staff that are part of this. So, and of course Tom and Mark, as I said. So with that introduction, I want to get going and go through this. But keeping in mind, when we get to, I like to begin with the end in mind, but without beginning with the end in mind, but beginning with the next step in mind, because we're not going to come to an end here. We're going to come to a discussion, a dialogue, and have some meaningful conversation to figure out how we move forward together. So there is no end. This isn't a proposal that we're asking you to take and run with. This is a presentation to give you information so that we move forward working together. So people that have asked for this thing to be stopped and whatever else this project has been characterized in the last 4 hours, this is simply a starting point as moving forward from the fund balance presentation to work together to figure out how we can go together with the same information and ask the questions in a meaningful way. So with that said, I'd like to get started with the Troy story. We'll talk about where we've been quickly in a few of the studies that you did. We'll talk about where we are today and how we compare with neighboring communities and what is Troy's status. We'll talk about where we're going and how we really need to come to the situation where we are today and rebalance our service levels. And we'll even look at a management scenario, which is not a proposal, which is simply just the framework from the staff team that we've assembled to look at what the ramifications are when we include some of the projects, the proposals, the programs, the staffing level changes, the infrastructure enhancements, what that looks like financially. Does that make sense? So there's a couple of other things. Like I said, I like to begin with the next step in mind. Where are we going with this? And I'll jump to the conclusion. I'll give you the punchline right now again, so that everyone's very clear on where we're going, so that there's no miscommunication, there's no misperceptions out there. You know, we think that this is a great opportunity internally to discuss it and bring it to the council, and then we think after this there'd be an opportunity to take this presentation and have some external focus groups out in the community to determine, you know, what some of the feedback really is, because it is a process. And as these gentlemen know over there, we're always willing to meet with, you know, Mr. Characero and anyone else to go over a lot of this information, because it is a lot to digest. So it started back with Vision 2020, and this is one of the top 10. Councilmember Fleming asked us to look at Vision 2020, so we looked at that, and what did it do? It created a master plan, promoted Troy as an environment for investment, and looked at upgrading public transportation in the transit center. And the Zucker report in January 2008, you did that study, which gave you some tangible outcomes and what you should implement: accepting electronic documents, issuing permits over the internet, zoning verification, site and compliance inspection in 5 days. So put some parameters on that, and field computers for inspectors. So some of the things that were in the Zucker report, many of them that have already been implemented and made the Building and Planning Division very, very progressive and investment friendly, investor friendly. And then the last thing was the ICMA study that looked at a lot of efficiencies, departmental efficiencies, including police transition from specialist to generalist, with the downsizing of the organization. You'll see a slide later where we show from 08, you've eliminated 171 positions, or about 35 or 6% of the workforce. That's a significant reduction in staffing, and you needed to create some efficiencies to do that. That just doesn't happen because there's an economic downturn. So these are the studies that were done. The ICMA Zucker report and Vision 2020 that you used, and we do have a full report that we will send you tomorrow on these 3 studies that Saharish, working together with Anna, have put together, summarizing those studies. But with the time constraints of tonight, it would take a long time to go over it. But we wanted to recognize them to discuss or demonstrate where we've been. We talked about the fund balance presentation, and conversation was made to me by someone on the Building Board of Appeals. How does the city of Troy compare to other AAA bond-rated municipalities? And there's only 4 AAA bond-rated municipalities as rated by Standard & Poor's in the state of Michigan, and Troy, Bloomfield Township, Bloomfield Hills, and Birmingham. And their level of fund balance is shown here, with Bloomfield having a significant fund balance, Birmingham having a little over the average, Bloomfield Hills a little less, and Troy at about 51% that we've been talking about. So you can see the average. I also, Tom was kind enough to get us, because a lot of people ask, how is Oakland County doing in terms of fund balance? And while, you know, we didn't put them on here because these are the 4 rated AAA by Standard & Poor's, we do have the information about the Oakland County and their fund balance, and it just demonstrates the fact that you cannot compare apples to apples, because their unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures is 0.32%. So that should raise some questions in your mind. 0.32% unassigned fund balance. But what they've done is they have this entire list of assigned amounts for various things, as quality of life initiatives, emergency salaries, technology replacement, and when you add the 2 together, it's about 62.5%. So they've used the accounting mechanisms and by committing, assigning funds for various things, which is very, as you might imagine from Oakland County, it's very smart and very good, solid planning for the Oakland County. So, but comparing the two gets rather difficult. What makes up the numbers is the only thing. So I'll go quickly through the city millage rate comparisons and the city of Troy at 10.52, and how do we compare to the others. I think everyone by now knows that we compare very favorably. In fact, Rochester Hills is the only one with a lower millage rate, but their millage rate does not include refuse, sanitation, so garbage collection. And we estimated $200 per year in that. So when you look at how much Troy pays in the city tax bill comparison and the size of the house, we are still the smallest house. Rochester Hills at 971. When you add in the $200 for garbage, which is in our 1,052, we are the lowest of all these municipalities in terms of what you pay on the value of a home, $200,000 home. So without getting into that whole discussion, we thought it was important to see where the city of Troy stacks up relative to our neighbors. And then sign of a good municipality is what level of debt do they have? How much debt is accounted for coming out of their general fund, tax dollars? When you look at proposal A, B, and C, which were voter approved in the debt fund, you have, as well as the county contract, which is comes out of our capital projects fund, you have annual payment of $3,500,000, which is about 4% of governmental expenditures, which is very, very low. The legal debt limit at 10% of assessed is $441 million. We're at 418, so the 22 million is outstanding. And they're both debt supported. So I know I'm going quickly, but the point is, when you look at the capital projects, and that's debt supported through the charter, when you look at the debt fund, which are proposals A, B, and C, it's debt supported, or it's millage supported, voter approved. So there's absolutely no general fund debt in the city of Troy, which is amazing. And you're very well positioned. So when you think of AAA bond rating, you think of cash reserves, you think of debt service. What kind of debt levy load do you have? Zero in the general fund that's not millage supported. That's pretty significant. So sign of a great city, well managed financially. So then we look at the situation of declining revenues, taking you back to 2008, where we had revenues declining from 08 to 13, $10.8 million. So that was, and of course, it's easy to look forward, right? It's easy to look back and show what was the elephant in the room here that was coming up. And when you look at $10.8 million reduction, that's a big number that your revenues are declining. And of that 10 million, 7 million was tax revenue. So a good chunk of it was tax revenue. And I refer to this, after 08 and 09 and 10, this is really the fiscal cliff there that everyone was talking about at the time. The fiscal cliff was your revenues declining $10 million, 7 of which was property tax revenues. And so you look at your expenditures. What did your expenditures do? Well, the city council and the administration obviously worked very hard when their revenues were greater than, their expenditures were greater than revenues to adjust these expenditures so that they were coming under the revenues that were falling off a cliff, basically. So of that, $4.3 million was a reduction from the library, and $10.6 million was a reduction from employee concessions, retirement incentives and position eliminations, all the things that everyone knows, the 171 positions that were eliminated, the early retirements, the hiring people at lower wage rates, the flattening of the organization, the efficiencies that were created, was $10 million of that. $4 million was the library. So again, in summary, on the chart here, which is where we spend a lot of our time, revenues declining pretty significantly, expenditures being reduced by $14.9 million, with $4.3 million reduction from the library, and $10.6 from employee concessions and retirement. So then we said, what would be the, well, you know what, let me go back here. See, right here, I'll talk about it, and maybe we'll get to it a little later, is the unassigned fund balance was at $12 million in 11, and it went in 12 to $23 million. There's a reason for that, and it's that $6 million, as well as reclassification from assigned fund balance to unassigned, committed to unassigned, because Nino was telling you that evaluations were being contested and people were owed refunds as a result of, how many, Nino, what was it?
At its peak, we had 600 years worth of appeals. And pre-2007 and post-2013, it's about 35, 40. So, I mean, you can see that's a tenfold increase, more than tenfold increase.
So you put money aside to pay those about $4.5 million in rough numbers aside to adjust for that and to compensate and pay that bill. And then once they slowed down, as Nino would say, the economy caught back up, then that money set aside wasn't, the remaining money wasn't needed, so it got reclassified here. So it isn't like you're hiding money and now you have it, or what you're doing is you're assigning money, much like Oakland County, by the way. You're assigning the money for a specific purpose, property tax appeals, and then it's no longer needed because they've been reduced. Make sense to everybody? Because that's a big factor here in the conversation of how did we get there. So again, because it gets talked about a lot, the impact without the library millage is looking here at the same revenue stream that we projected out to 2016. The expenditure stream is the red, and then the blue is as the library ramped up with the millage and they get going, what, if you don't have the millage rate, what the expenditures would look like vis-a-vis the green, which is the revenues. So as you will hear us say throughout this presentation, this is not a budget, this is a projection, and this means we have work to be done as we go forward in all these areas, but we have to be mindful of what the trend is and what the impact is of the decisions we make. So getting back to this one, here's the $4.53 million reclassified due to unneeded tax tribunal funds that I was talking about before. You can see the shading from 12.3 to 23 million, with 6 of it being a surplus, which was, as the chief told you last, a lot of positions in the police department that were unfilled, not to mention citywide. Right now, chief, you have 8 positions unfilled right now.
9.
Pardon me?
9.
So it went up since yesterday. So 9 positions, and as it becomes harder and harder, that shows up because we do budget for full employment, and we'll talk about that at another slide as well. Here's the slide I talked about, the total full-time staff being reduced from 472 to 301. That's 171 full-time positions, not part-time, not temporary. I mean, that's full-time bodies, 36.2%. That's very impressive when you look at it. So the next point is where we're going, and what does that look like? And we put some symbols up there just to show you some of the things that we've been talking about and that other people have said. So this is meant to be pretty inclusive. And the snowflake represents snow plowing, more frequently than the 4-inch rule through local streets and subdivisions. We know that that's an issue that comes up periodically. Shoveling the snow routes, sidewalks, that's an issue that comes up as well, and I think was even brought up tonight, if I'm not mistaken, in the meeting. This one here is a high-traffic road replacement, and Bill's going to talk about some of that a little later. If you had a certain amount of money, what are the worst roads in Troy, whether they're local, major, county, or whatever? What are the worst ones that we would look at to replace and make better? The I-75 project is a project that's coming down the pike. 2000 and what is it, 18? Yeah, 2018 is the first part, and all told it's about a $10 million local match by the city of Troy over time though. But it's just one of those things that's out there. Trailways and pathways continually get brought up in terms of what people would like to see in Troy when you do surveys, so that's on here as part of the infrastructure. And then dog parks is another one of those we've heard about that's out here that gets talked about. Internally, there are a few areas where positions should be considered going forward. Not to mention the furlough that we eliminated half of last year, and looking at that going forward. Public safety, police and fire, needing to look at those areas is what this represents. The last one is the medical retirement. You had the presentation by Tom and the people last week that looked at the funding levels. So we needed to mention that when we're trying to identify many of the areas where costs are increased. Fire Station 4 is something that's been out there. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but last, it was 1968 or 66? Where'd he go? 68, I should remember that. Anyway, City Hall, and looking at infrastructure around here. Miscellaneous, this is represents homes and millage reduction, because that gets talked about, whether that's in terms of the library or wherever, but reducing the millage rate is always talked about. Oops, I'm sorry. And the last one was the impact of the state, right here with personal property tax, and we heard a lot of conversation about that tonight. Again, it's one of those things where state pressures, they ebb and flow, they come and go. You don't realize, what the current status of the legislature is and the current bills, and until they're passed. But are we going to get fully reimbursed? Is it 20% we're going to lose and get reimbursed 80%? What is it? We heard that conversation tonight. So the management scenario, this is us sitting around and brainstorming and analyzing over the last year, what are some things that we should at least have a conversation about where we're going in the future. And so when we looked at it, reinstating the traffic safety unit and police officers was one of the ideas in the management scenario. And I'll ask the chief to talk about what exactly that means.
Just going to briefly give some oversight with that. I think, as everyone's aware, our citizens consistently identify traffic safety as one of the top issues. Most of our complaints are traffic-oriented. We see people come to council meetings about traffic issues. Traffic safety specialists would provide expertise for complex major crash investigations. You can't have a generalist handling a complex investigation because they take a lot of time, and you have to be a specialist to know what you're doing. We would also be able to increase our commercial vehicle enforcement, which will assist with road deterioration, which is another item you're going to discuss tonight. This will allow us to increase staffing during our busiest time, and what I'm most fond of is it allows proactive policing versus reactive report taking.
So if you did that, it'd be about $500,000 annually. So again, we're just giving you some examples of areas to focus on and what the approximate cost would be, and then we'll look at the end what this management scenario does financially from a macro standpoint. So the second would be increased strategic plowing of local roads, and that would be, instead of the 4-inch rule, something less, like the 3-inch rule or some combination, and reinstating snow and ice control for school route sidewalks. Now, we're not prepared to talk about which sidewalks that is, but just simply an idea. And Kurt will talk about what that means and why.
Well, as you know, historically, we've had a rule of, or a threshold of 4 inches before we went into local roads. When we went into local roads, we did a 24-hour snow operation. That means once the snow stopped, we had all local roads cleared within 24 hours. That was the use of city staff and contracted staff. Each snow event costs approximately $20,000. So we needed to put a new threshold on the proposed addition. So we did 3 inches, and based on 5-year average, it brings us up to about an additional 6 snow events a year. So additional $720,000 if we lowered that threshold to 3. Again, based on a 5-year average. And then focusing on the residential school route sidewalks, that was brought up several times. What we did is we looked at what we did historically with our sidewalk school routes. Again, estimating based on 5-year averages, we're estimating it would be about 9 snow events where we'd actually go out and clear the snow on the sidewalks at an approximate cost of $7,000 each event, or a total of $63,000. There's about 6.5 miles worth of school walks that we would remove the snow on, and we would revisit that if we move forward. We would be collaborating with the Troy School District and re-looking at those routes of what we used to do and what we would do.
And the total cost?
$783,000 annually.
Approximately. The other is to, when we talked about the fire and what would be needed there, the increase in fire prevention and outreach, as well as the fire station 4 from 1968. And Chief is going to talk about what that means.
We reorganized the fire department in 2008, and basically we eliminated 3 high-ranking positions, which was 23% of our staff. We created a new entry-level position, which starts at a considerably lower wage. It caused us to change the focus of the fire department from our strong prevention posture and philosophy to more of a reactive philosophy. And this worked well when we had very low level of development in town. As development starts to pick up, we have a mantra here that says fast, friendly, and predictable. Right now, we're pretty friendly, we're pretty predictable, but we're not as fast because we are working our people basically with all this added development with 3 less positions. Something has to give. So basically, that is really one of the areas that we're proposing that we might want to think about adding another fire staff technician, which is our entry-level position. Fire Station 4 was built in 1968. Where was everybody in 1968? What were you doing? A long time. We added a gable roof and a few square feet to the building in the 80s, mid-80s. It has a number of major deficiencies. It's just all kinds of problems. We actually had an architect come in and look at it and give us some recommendations on what we could do there. At one time, we had talked about building another station in a different location in that same area. What we're looking at now is just basically being able to put something new on the same site. Much more cost effective. And those 2 things together, the technician's about $100,000 a year, and the Station 4 cost, we've got it pegged right now at about $3.5.
Infrastructure, when we talk to Bill Hootery and Steve, we say, you know, what's the road situation? And you hear it every year during the budget, but this is a little bit more than that. On top of the budget, Bill, what would you do and where would you do it?
What we looked at was really is how would we serve our residents and businesses the best, and really it looks, when we look at it, we're looking at volumes and road conditions, and as we kind of talk every year, is our worst condition roads, or our poorest condition roads are our county roads. And looking at volumes on Big Beaver, Long Lake, and John R. specifically, Big Beaver is probably pushing 50,000 vehicles a day. Rochester Road is similar, but not quite in the condition as Big Beaver or Long Lake or John R. What we were looking at was about $6.3 million to do what we would consider more intense concrete slab replacement, trying to get mile segments wrapped up rather than the scattered, some people call buckshot approach to our slab replacement program. To that end, I did meet with the county a couple times. The Road Commission for Oakland County does not have cash in hand to give us a match or anything like that. What they have offered is, should we be able to free up some money to do work on county roads, they've offered to provide us what we like to call a soft match. They would provide the design, the inspection, and the construction management, which equates to about 20%. So if you look at 6.3 million, it's about almost 1.3 million. So total project cost, you're looking at about 7.6 million for that 6.3. And what it really means to me is that 6.3 million is all going into the road. So you have 6.3 million in dollars, you got 6.3 million in pavement repairs that you're gonna do. Because it's something, if we had to do it in-house, we would have to use consultants. We don't have enough staff. Put it in perspective, 6.3 million is about double our total local and major road program for a year. So it's about doubling that. We just don't have the staff to do it. What we did here is we looked at, the blue is essentially what's budgeted, what we've done, what we're doing, what we're going to be doing. So we did 3 miles overlay on Square Lake this past year, 2 miles on Leroy by the county, slab work on Crooks at I-75 and then north and south, as well as slab work at the crossovers on Long Lake and some slab work there. What we've got coming up in the spring is 2 more miles overlay on Waddles. And then in our proposed 14-15 budget, we've got about 3.5 miles of overlay on Waddles, a mile on Square Lake. The green there is what the areas that we would be looking at, and it's not every piece of concrete in there, but if you drive Big Beaver between Somerset and City Hall, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And we looked a lot at some primary traffic generators, the 2 high schools in Somerset. A lot of people that come to Troy are getting off at Big Beaver and they're heading to Somerset and driving down that road. If you're stopping at a light, looking at loops. Other thing the county has offered, and they're doing it already with our slab work, is they are providing us with the loops. They're taking care of that for us, so it's a cost that we don't have to bear now. So they're looking for inventive ways to help us to reduce our project costs, whether it be through the project management or even providing loops to help us to try and staff these projects, make our project essentially have a larger cost, but not in dollar cents.
Bill, what's that red area on the outline there?
That's a pour. The underlying map is our 2013 Pacer. We just got the 2014 in. I just got that. If we pulled the colors off, the kind of the greens and blues, what's under there primarily is red. There's reds and yellows, and that's kind of on Long Lake. There's quite a few areas that are marked as poor. Big Beaver's got some, and then the 2 miles on the Waddles between Crooks and Rochester are poor city major roads. Our 14 showed, and that's kind of what we've been talking about, is the kind of the downward trends. We've got some poor roads, but those were things that we had included in our budget to be done in the spring. So the city system after 14-15, if we did no county roads, the city system is going to be fair and good, fair trending to good essentially. The county system is fair trending to poor, and their percentage of poor roads is increasing. So, and they don't have money to put on the road, so it is something that we believe is a very good use. We took the $500,000 that we got last year to do work on Crooks Road, and that turned out very well. And then the other $500,000 went to the extra mile on Square Lake as an overlay project. So that money went into the roads immediately. $1 million in additional money we got on the roads immediately. And that's the county is in meetings with them. They would be very receptive to anything, and they would manage it, and it's something they would get in and hop on it immediately, actually.
Internally, we talked about some of the areas that we wanted to focus on, and the first is eliminating the rest of the furlough hours. 52 hours annually is what's remaining, and then over the last year and a half, the risk management position was parceled out into different areas. And for a city this size and for the issues that come up, the risk management function is pretty important. And we would recommend, so what we're talking about here is in order to reduce some organizational liability issues and bring that back under one position, to have a concerted effort in the liability area, we should consider that. Eliminating the furlough hours is employee morale increases, productivity increases. Remember, it is 40 hours work and 40 hours pay, so we are getting productivity when we eliminate the furlough hours. It's not like an increase without productivity. And the furlough cost would be about $500,000, and the risk management position is about $100,000. The last thing is we sat around here during before the budget presentations, when we were having the departmental reports, and remember Carol Anderson, who's not with us tonight, talked about all the different areas where they had eliminated positions due to the last 5 years. And when you ask what should you look at, the recreation, we'll talk about it, Aileen, in a second, reinstating the family and 50-plus programs. So, Aileen, go ahead.
Current staffing levels in the Recreation Department make it difficult to program for trends and the demands of the community. Adding this allocation would allow us appropriate staffing levels to bring back programs and activities that have been eliminated.
Okay. So that's the management scenario in summary that we've just gone through. And again, this is just a starting point, or it's the next step in a very long collaborative process. Just showing a bit of a framework from some of the things that have been talked about over the last 12 months to continue the discussion. So when we look at the spreadsheet and financially, what does that mean? Starting with actual of 2013, you can see an estimated unassigned fund balance of about $25 million. That's where we start in the first column. And when we go across this first year, if we were to talk about doing this in the first year, many of these things couldn't happen until next year, but the snow plowing, we put in here, the reinstate the school route plowing right here, and then everything else, eliminating furlough is the next year, reinstating the traffic safety unit, the risk manager, recreation programs at 50 grand, fire technician, and then the snow. And then we broke the street repair program that Bill just talked about into 2 years, because they probably, as efficient as they are, and as much as they would like to get it all done in 1 year, it's not practical.
They don't want to hire staff either.
Yeah, so it's best to at least, from a conceptual standpoint, talk about that over 2 years. And then Fire Station 4, the same. So all said, when you put the numbers together, you look at an estimated unassigned fund balance forecasted out in 2018 at $6.2 million or 11% of expenditures. So you can see with this management scenario, just to roll it out there and have a discussion, there's some work to be done as we go forward, because depending on what level of fund balance you want to retain in the city's finances, that plays a big factor on how far and what, if any, we would do with this. But at least we show you, with just these issues and these programs, this scenario, what the financial impact would be. And again, I show this slide here because it takes us from 08 to 13 and all the work that's been done and where we are today. So in conclusion, and I'll go back to that slide, or beginning of the slide, so we have discussion. Where have we been? There were tough choices that had to be made, and you actually showed success at the fiscal cliff edge. And that's what a lot of municipalities can't say. I had lunch with an elected official today who asked me what we were talking about tonight and was very envious of the position that the city of Troy is in financially. So where are we? It's best place to raise a family, AAA bond rating, one of the lowest millage rates in Michigan, strong cash reserves, and an overall excellent quality of life because of the residents, the school system, and the city all working together for Troy. So where are we going? This is a bit of the fun part for me. We definitely want to collaborate on opportunities for success. We need to discuss fund balance level resolutions, evaluate service levels. That's what the management scenario was one idea on. Determining infrastructure needs, really drill down in this AAA bond rating and have a team approach to analyzing and understanding and evaluating how the things that we really need to do to maintain our AAA bond rating. So that we're all on the same page. We have a conversation with Standard & Poor's, some training from them, a conference training, where we all understand it and agree and know how we move forward. And then regaining the safest city designation. We are the safest city in Oakland County, the chief tells me, so we want to regain that designation statewide because it is a safe city, but there's steps that we need to take to maintain that, and it's a team effort. So, and the last thing, and this is what I said, beginning with the next steps in mind, not the end in mind, whereas we would take this presentation and we'd have a lot more discussion with the city council in a study session and staff, and then take it with some other external focus groups and get community input from various groups and people who have an investment in Troy, whether through the residents or their business. And I'm always fond of saying that in all communities, there are many diamonds out there, that people with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that's untapped, and it's up to us to find those groups and people who really care and want to make this a great place. So that's where we think we're going. And this whole presentation has been a team approach as I started, and so I want to thank everyone for their help, and we will take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Brian. Well, I have some questions, but who wants to go first? You want me to go ahead? Sure. I don't know how you want to do this, Brian, but I kind of made some notes on some of the pages as we were kind of moving forward. But I don't know how it coincides with the slides. But if you could just bring up the Vision 2020, the Zucker report and the ICMA study, which is pretty close to the front.
It's easier if they do it over there. It's a lot quicker. Page 3.
There aren't many on council that were here when we did the ICMA study, but just as a clarification on that, and we certainly transformed the police department from a specialist to a generalist, but I think everybody has to understand back in 2010, when we were looking at all of this, we were looking to see if we were going to be sustainable if we made those serious cuts of 171 positions. So, it was more of a study to see what levels we could be at to be sustainable. And here we are today, sustainable. We made it through, and because of what we did, we became sustainable. And then we always wanted to get to a position that we are today so that we could take a look at not just being sustainable. And I think that's kind of the theme that I think we've all been talking about for months, is to take us from that so-called sustainable mode and get us back to being proactive with the police department, proactive with infrastructure, proactive with the fire department, public safety. So I think it was a good start, but I just want everybody to understand that when we did all that stuff back in 2010, 2009, we're just trying to survive. We're trying to survive. And it's no fault of the police department except for what we did, that we turned them from a specialist to a generalist position because of what there was that $10 million white elephant was out there for us that we that you showed today that turned out to be reality. You know, we were told this in 2009, and it turned out that that was the reality. And if we hadn't done what we did, we wouldn't be sitting here today certainly talking about what you're talking about. And I just think that's important to point out as we move forward and as we go through your documents. I mean, there's a couple of white elephants that are still out there that I think need to be finalized, put out there, and buried. And one of them is the library, because that's the one thing that people campaign about, people talk about. They try to make it look like back in 2009 when we made a very, very tough decision. And I was the one that sat at this study session and promoted the .7 mills to keep our library. And here we are today, and if you want to bring that slide up there. And it's evidence to me, unless I'm missing something, that had we not posed that .7 mills back when it was done, we would be in serious trouble today.
Yeah, this is what we're showing.
Even with all of the cuts and stuff that we made. So that has to be put to bed.
That's what you're talking about
That's
here.
what I'm talking about. So let's put that to bed and move forward. This is what I want to do. And then
Discuss the library?
No, I'm more than happy to discuss it, but I've heard for years that we shouldn't have done that. Okay? Did you want to jump in now, Councilman Teets?
I just, that's good and well. You have, opinions about what happened in '09 or maybe that's '09? Yeah, or 2010. Yeah, I think I guess this is a good start, and I just, boy, I don't want to ramble. So maybe you have more written out questions.
Well, I did. I just thought there were some points tonight that just need some clarification so that when we walk away from here, we all understand. You know, we may not all want to do what the management has proposed, and I certainly want trails. I didn't see any of that in here tonight. Is there any sort of proposals to, at minimum, start building? I know once again, there's only two on council. When we took $2.5 million, is my recollection, out of the Trails Fund to pay our bills, and depleted that fund that we were preparing to do trails with. I'd like to see that started again, personally. And I noticed that that wasn't...
We do not have it in the management scenario, but again, that was just
understand.
Putting the framework out there to see the impact.
Councilman Fleming?
Yeah, just talk about the library. Based on what we know now and the way the expenditures were cut, if you look at this slide number 12 that we got here, what it's telling me is we'd have been okay in 11, based on what we know now, it's all history. We'd still be okay in 12. In 13, this slide says we would need a library millage. 13, we would have got by for 2 years. Then in 13, 14 is when it would really hit us. Next year's really hit us. If you look at this, I'm trying to understand how this correlates with slide number 13 here, because how much is the library millage actually increasing the revenue? How much a year?
It's 3.3 million?
Yeah, about 3.3.
The library millage, special millage is about 3.3 million. So I'm looking at this slide, and I'm looking at slide number 13. I'm saying in 2009, in 2010, we had an unassigned fund balance of 10.72. Okay, 2011 we had 12, 2012 we got 23. if it's $3 million a year that the library millage is bringing in, it only started in 2011, 12, 13, we would still be okay. We'd still be okay because now we got 23 million. 3 million times 3 is 9 million that we would have used. We'd have still been okay. The bottom line is that library millage is done. It's passed, but we would have not been in trouble in 2013. I don't think we'd have been in trouble in 2014 or 15, based on what we know now, if we had not passed the library millage. If you want to talk about that, I mean, if you do the numbers.
I think you're looking at it wrong, because you have to deduct.
Just looking at unassigned fund balance.
You would have had to spend money on a library in years 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 at $3 to $4 million a year, okay? So that has to come out of your fund balance.
That's what I'm saying. If you'd have done that in 10, say $4 million a year, go on the high side. 10, 11, 12.
That's $12 million. That's $16 million.
$16 million. And we're sitting here with 25 million. So we would have still had, based on what we know now, if we spent 16, we got 25 million left, we'd have still had money in our unassigned fund balance. If you're just strictly talking about the library.
But if you wouldn't be able, all you'd be doing is surviving, okay? You would be still in survival mode today, and probably worse, you'd be going down, you know?
That's the point.
You'd have had $8 million and you'd have had $8 million in unassigned fund balance today if we had not had a library millage, right? We'd still had $8 million in unassigned fund balance. Am I missing something, Tom? We still had $8 million.
We can cover it any way we want. We know that starting in 10, you really started downsizing the library because you weren't sure, but survival. So the expenditures are artificially low, 10 through basically 11. The millage didn't start till 2012. So
Right.
10 and 11 are kind of artificially low. Again, in today's terms, we're running at a level about 3.3 million a year. It was set to 4.3.
I said 4.
So.
That's what we show here. We said you were ramping up right here.
Yeah.
This is where, in my presentation, we said you just passed the millage and you were ramping up. But remember, it's easy to look backwards.
It sure is.
But if you were looking forward, you're reducing your total employees $10 million, whether it's positions, all these different things. So, you really were working the expenditure side of your ledger in every area possible, which is...
Absolutely. We went too far. I think we all know that. We had more people take up their early retirement. We took a big hit. We went too far. The bottom line is, if you just look at these numbers, and we're at 25 million now, and say the library was going to cost you $4 million a year, times 4 years at 16 million. So you still had 8 million in unassigned fund balance. But the bottom line is, we took a big hit. We saved a lot more in expenditures than anybody at this council table ever anticipated. I didn't think it was going to happen.
Absolutely. But the point has to be made at the end of this, though. You don't get here to tell the success story today in this presentation without the library millage. We would be here today talking about being in survival mode with not doing anything.
Instead of having a healthy fund balance.
We got a healthy fund balance now. We'd have been at $8 million, $8 or $9 million fund balance rather than 25 million if we hadn't had the library millage.
We couldn't have refinanced the bonds for the DDA because we wouldn't have a AAA bond rating.
We understand.
And we can debate that,
I understand.
I know you're not trying to think about the past, but we keep on talking about the past. I'd like to address some other things. Is that okay to move on?
Absolutely. But when people beat you to death over something, you have to get to a point where you just set it aside and you move forward. Okay.
I'm setting things aside right now. I want to move forward. Couple things, I think, there are some basic premises in the suggestions, I think, or recommendations or whatever
Well, first of all, they're not recommendations.
Suggestions?
No, they're not suggestions. They are a collaborative approach to trying to put together a management scenario based on what other people have talked about, including you, including people around this table, including staff, including community people, to just see what the impact would be in a macro fashion. And I know it hasn't been characterized like that. So I'm sensitive to making sure we're on the same page talking about it.
Okay, good. Couple of things that are premises that are unstated, but I think we should talk about. First one is, as far as millage rate, are we at the right spot? Are we not at the right spot? If people are satisfied with the millage rate that we're currently paying. And then the second one is going forward, I think if we said to each other, well, we're satisfied with how the library is being funded, we want to continue that millage going forward. Because if we just allow things to continue as they are, it requires that the millage be renewed in a couple of years. And so we need to be very candid with each other, and whatever decisions we make here are going to affect that decision-making, because a future council will be forced to make that decision.
Right.
And so I think, I think there's to be a decision in that direction as well, saying, we think this is the way to do it. We don't think that it should be brought back into the budget as talked about before. And so, I think those are two premises that are unstated. The other thing that I've talked about before, primarily with folks, is how we're dealing with some of our pension obligations. And we had a good presentation in the last meeting about those and the ongoing expense and so forth, and things like our firefighters' pension that, and it was very difficult to get a good sense of where we're at percentage-wise and so forth. But it's underfunded, I think is a fair way of saying it, whatever that percentage, whether it's 45% or 65. And it's something where I think we really need to evaluate that and how we spend this money, how we use the money, whether it's any of these things. I think it needs to be a long-term use, not something where we're going to start a new liability or a new expense year after year. And so, doing something that is going to make a difference, not 4 years, not 5 years, but 10, 15, 20 years, is something that we need to evaluate. Because really, if you spend 18 million or whatever that number is, there's not another well to go to. I mean, that's it. And so I'm very, very cautious about that. And so a lot of good ideas, and there are a lot of good ways to spend money, or could be a lot of good ways to spend money. I'm very concerned that we will be anxious to say, gosh, it would be nice, or really this would be a good way to improve something, when caution is probably the best course. So just bring those up as discussion points and go from there.
I agree with you. And if I could just, I carry around, a list of our success story with me because I get a chance many times to talk to people. And I think your point is well taken. And when you take a look at what Standards & Poor's said about the city of Troy when they gave us our AAA bond rating when we refinanced the DDA bonds, I think it's always important to look at the paragraph that they said about Troy, and that the city's overall financial profile remains very strong, in our view, despite the recent declines in taxable valuation, as categorized by very strong reserves. And they pointed out 51% of the operating expenditures. So to piggyback on what you said, you know, and what our administration has told me in the last couple of months is that cash is king, okay? And you got to be careful, and I think the first thing that this council has to decide is what is a good, healthy fund balance amount? What percentage? And when you take a look at the 4 cities that are AAA bond rated, and you take a look at what Oakland County, and I always tell Brian every time I talk to him, you know, Oakland County has always been a measure for me to take a look at how they do things. It was important to me when we looked at doing a 3-year budget that Oakland County, we looked at the things that they did, and I look at the things that they do now. And I like what they did with that 62.5%, because that is almost like an itemized, it almost itemizes what your fund balance would go towards. And I think it's an excellent idea. It's something I think we really should take a look.
So it'd be percent instead of a dollar amount. Yeah, that would make more sense.
Well, but they've said dollar amounts in all these different categories.
It's still
Definitely, they're a leader.
They're a leader.
They spend it all. Well, they identify it all. It's very much.
Anyways,
Very
it's
well
a
done.
point well taken from Councilman Teets. I think that, you know, we first need to decide, I think, what is a good fund balance for us to maintain. And I've realized recently that it doesn't necessarily mean that it should be 50% or it should be 40%, because if you take a look at what's going on with Macomb County right now, they have a 43% fund balance. They have, their pensions are in good shape, and they just got downgraded from AA. So it's a combination, as we're learning, I think. I think Brian makes a good point, that we need to sit down with Standards and Poor's and let them kind of give us a good guidance as to what this total package needs to be. It's not necessarily 51%. It's not necessarily 40%, but it's all the other things that you're doing too. So, Councilman, or Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
A little bit of a thunder stealer, because that's exactly where I was going. To Councilman Fleming's...
I learned that from Brian. Every time I go somewhere, Brian, he always speaks before I do.
Takes I'm a little dry. I'll reiterate it, just so that...
Sure.
That's what he... To Councilman Fleming's point, had we not enacted the library millage, and we were down to about an $8 million fund balance, if you look at '08, that's about 13.9. Well, you know, our standard right now is 15%, according to council. So, you know, is that the right number? It probably isn't, but, you know, we really, as a council, need to with Brian's guidance, sit with Standard & Poor's, figure out where we need to be, because there's another, Bloomfield Hills only has 23% in their AAA. So, you know, somewhere between 50% and 15% is probably where we need to be, but, you know, we really have to have some education to try to figure where that is. So, and I think the other day we talked about, are there any municipalities that you know of that have not gotten a AAA bond rating that have a high fund balance? Because that to your point, that might not be what we need to look at to maintain that.
Let's put it this way, I'm sure there is, in my opinion, because, again, it's much more than fund balance. There's basically 7 categories to look at, and that's a lot of its policies and what we do as a management team.
What Standards and Poor's does go out of their way to say that cash is king.
And I've said that, that's exactly right. But
So in our policy, it should be more than just, you know, we need X percent as fund balance. We need to set, you know, whatever standards those are to make sure that, you know, we maintain it and keep it.
And to Councilman Teets's point, we don't want to leave the council 2, 3, 4 years from now having to make a decision on the library. That has to be a factor, I think, in the decisions that we make here in a couple of years. If we can reduce the rate, that would be great. I think we would all like to do that. As long as it doesn't keep us in the sustainability mode. And from what I heard from the reports today, they'd like to move out of the sustainability mode and get more proactive. That's how we became the safest city. It wasn't being reactive. It wasn't a fire department that reacts. It wasn't a police department that reacts. We were very, very proactive. And I think we need to get back to that personally. Brian, did you I always thought, how you did those priority things, 1 through, you started 1 through 10, but it got to be 12, but maybe we should do like a 1 through 5 or something at a future meeting. Oh.
Do you want me to hand these? I just happen to have no cards. If you want to,
I can't.
Oh, I can.
I can't.
Well, I didn't know you were going to say that, by the way. I just happened to.
I can't because I got other things I'm processing.
Well, I think we got to have another.
Funding of
We got to
pensions.
have another meeting anyways.
Yeah, this is just a lift, this is just a lift off. This is,
Exactly.
a
great.
a stop in the road. This is not the end game. This presentation is available under our website, under the city manager page, under resources, I'm told. So this is available to all. And again, Mr. Characero can attest, I'm willing to meet with you and anyone else and actually put together a few focus groups to get
I
feedback
think a
as
focus
well.
group is a great thing. We did that before with the library, and I think it was a great thing that happened, and I think it's a great thing to do, transparency.
And I'm not, remember, we're not, as a team, we're not promoting any one thing or other thing. This is promoting a process. That's what we're here to do. It's not a budget, it's a process to identify how we all
We're
collaborate.
starting the budgeting process.
Yeah,
It's really what we're doing.
Yep.
Right?
In a non-budgeting format.
So I think we need to get back to you before the next study session with our top 5 and set some time aside that's 11 o'clock. And talk round 2 about this. Councilwoman Buderick.
I guess as I'm walking away from this tonight, and residents ask me, what was the session like and what did you learn? What's your takeaway? My takeaway is we are in the enviable position because of tough decisions, because of the .7 mil library millage, to sit here and talk about how we can position ourselves, not only fund balance wise, but the overall economic environment of Troy. Macomb County lost that. They had fund balance, but the economic climate and picture wasn't solid. So when we're talking about main roads that people pull off of I-75 and see Big Beaver and when the curbs are broken up and we've got potholes, we're not filling commercial property space. The quality of our roads determines our long-term economic value. The proactive piece of the police department is what makes Troy, we got to be looking at how we restore that in iterative steps as best we can. The fire department, getting back, if we're getting development again, the priorities are the safety and infrastructure are absolutely key. And the takeaway is, we get to sit here and talk about the possibility of injecting into key areas and worry about the retirement fund balance, or retirement funding. And the takeaway is this community came together, held its nose, beat itself up, yelled at one another, screamed, council sat here and made difficult decisions, and it paid off. We're here in a really good position. Is that the takeaway, or do I have it wrong?
Well, I think, take a look at just some of the words that City Manager Kishnick, I wrote these down as he was saying them tonight. Outstanding, when you talked about total debt service, used the word outstanding. When you put that general fund debt circle up there, you used the word amazing. I mean, how many cities can say that? I know my colleague is sitting in the audience in Pontiac. Wouldn't that be great to have a general fund zero debt? I go through here and you were using some pretty good words to explain the position that the city of Troy is. And you said you had a conversation with another city recently that is envious of where we are, so.
We need to be proud that we've come through it.
I tell everybody wherever I go that we have a success story to tell.
And thank you,
And I-
city staff.
And I think that, yeah,
Thank you.
and I think we really got, if we do nothing else, we got to get rid of that furlough time. You know, you could do that tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. But they did their part. We're here today because of them. No doubt about it.
Thank you. I think it's excellent, a lot of good ideas here. Well, it's always easy to spend money, we know that. Boy, what we did before, what you guys all did was just the tough part. It's easy to spend it when you have it, you can always find a way to spend it. But what we don't want to do, want to be careful of this, that we don't put ourselves back in a position that future City of Troy employees have to go back and do the hard things that you guys had to go through, and the police department had to go through. Let's make sure that we protect that, and we don't let that happen. And we don't get in a situation where we gotta have tax increases and so forth, because we put ourselves in that position. We're in a great position. We're in an enviable position, we all agree. Let's be careful that we don't put ourselves in a bad position again. But great ideas to start with, but there's some others too we need to talk about.
Well, could I just respond to that? Because I think it bears, it's a bit of the same theme about being careful. The purpose of this slide is to identify areas and then show the financial impact from a macro, multi-year perspective, so that a lot of people can walk around and say, we need to rebuild the police department, we need to snow plow more, how come you're not plowing my street, I can't get out. It's one thing to just walk around and talk that way. What does it actually mean in the big picture, multi-year budget, and bottom line? And so that's all this slide is attempting to do, to give us that framework, and that's key. So I can't stress that enough. But we have to come up with something based on what's been talked about to show the impact.
Yes.
But you talk about the takeaways. You hit the takeaways pretty precisely, I thought. And this is kind of some of my thought without the external focus groups, because, I've been thinking about that for a couple of months, as a lot of staff knows, and I just didn't have it up here, but
That's great.
That's a good list.
It's perfect.
Real quick, what are next actions? I haven't heard that yet.
I think we should have another study session. Everybody get back with Brian about where we're going. It's important. Be prepared to come here to discuss moving on to phase 2 as this is kind of proactive budgeting for next year. But maybe we should meet with standards and pools before then, so that we know what kind of fund balance we should be looking at.
December 8th.
I'm sorry? Somebody know, what is it? December something, we have a Standard & Poor's conference, video conference.
Oh, we do.
Video conference?
The talk that I've invited staff to. What is it? 12 at noon? Or
Noon to 1.
Noon to 1, so December 12th, noon to 1.
Would that be beneficial to us?
Mayor, I'm willing to try anything to begin the process to drill down and explore that. I think at this point, anything would be beneficial.
I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I think it's difficult for us to talk about taking that fund balance from 51 to 20 without knowing what effect that's going to have on our AAA bond rating, which I think is very important to us. So I think maybe that I think is the next step we need to do is talk to Standards & Poor's, whether it's in a conference call or if we have to get them in here for a study session.
I would agree.
So sometime in December, I think would be good for that. Is there some agreement that should be the first thing?
Good idea. part of the,
And our top five to Brian.
That in our top five, get that to Brian before the 12th. Do you want to have a conversation with them on the 12th, Brian, and tell them that the city council would like to meet with them? at some
I'll
point?
do that before. On the 12th, it's a webinar. I think it's a webinar, yeah, it's a national thing, so
Yeah.
we're just tuning in, but I'll have a separate conversation. I've had email correspondence with them, so.
Councilman Fleming?
if you don't mind, one last comment. What we've really been good at is projecting what our revenues are going to be. And, very good at projecting revenues, okay? What we've not been as good at, and I think it's really by design and the way we budget, is predicting our expenditures and forecasting our expenditures. Because our expenditures is what we've really been low on. And we continue to budget that way because we continue to budget as if we're full staff when we're not. Just heard the chief say tonight that we're still 9 officers down.
We have 3 coming in the room, is that?
But we're down, but the bottom line is we are budgeted to be full staff. So when we're saying we're not going to, our expenses are going to be so much in 2014, they're going to be less than that. We're going to have additional fund reserve, probably based on our track record. Now, don't want to put words in my mouth, but based on our track record, we're probably going to have a little bit more additional because we're simply not going to be able to staff up. Or every time you staff a person, somebody leaves, you're back in that position. But we're budgeting fully staffed. Not all cities do that. Some cities project that you're going to be understaffed and budget accordingly. We never have we? And I'm not suggesting that we do. But what that does lead to is an additional excess, funds that go into your fund balance.
So, Councilmember Fleming, I appreciate you bringing it up because it is 11 o'clock and I didn't want to cover this tonight. You're talking just early. But I did learn this from my friends in Lansing.
Okay,
And
man.
so I didn't talk about it, but we've now called it the budget break-even adjustment. It's a vacancy factor is what I call it, but every staff would say, what is vacancy factor? It doesn't make sense.
It's a break-even adjustment.
So it's a break-even, it's because we know we're gonna have budgeted unfilled positions, attrition, and vacancy.
You're going to have it.
So we mirrored that number with what our budgeted shortfall, and basically zeroed out this financial picture so that it always goes from a zero balance standpoint, which we said we were going to use monies. Now we're saying we know we always have unfilled budgeted positions,
Always.
so we're accounting for it in this scenario. I would never recommend we budget that way, but we have accounted for it in this planning
Good.
exercise.
Thanks for explaining that, because you didn't explain that before.
I didn't even touch on it because it's 4.0.
Oh, we got 45 minutes on you, explain how you came to those numbers. I get that adjustment number.
I didn't even know what we called it now. I know it's a vacancy factor is what it is.
It really is.
Nobody liked that term, but it is the term.
I only have one more thing, and I don't know where this is going to go. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I would like to see us get rid of the furlough ASAP. I think it would be a great Christmas, a good holiday incentive as a thank you to getting us to our story today. I know it hurts in the police department because, when you take furlough, you don't get, it's tougher when you have minimums. I'm throwing that out there. I just think after sitting here today, I think we should give the furlough back. It's time. Councilman Teets?
I would love to do it, but I don't think it's prudent to make a decision based on the time of year or those sorts of things. I think we just follow the process, and I think...
Well, the process is to give the furlough back in 2015.
Well, I think we follow the process we outlined here tonight on the next steps, and that's to have the, meeting with Standard & Poor's. Just, it's not that this is something to withhold, but there's a lot of exceptions we can make, and it's not a doubt of the respect we have for the employees or anything like that, but it's just being cautious.
Anybody else?
What's the precedence of something like that? I mean, this is, isn't it usually in the budget? I mean, that would be.
We asked them to take it.
In the budget.
No, we asked them to take it back in 2009.
It's not.
There's no process.
In a different scenario, and now we're in a.
You can give it back just as easy as you took it.
It's a $500,000 change to our budget, isn't it?
That's the number we have.
That's approximately a $500,000 change. I don't think that's something we should make on a hunch tonight. Let's go through the process. I think it will be some.
No offense, but I understand that if I'm just giving other people opportunities to weigh in.
How do you go about doing it? You just raise hands and ask nothing. You guys all want your
consensus.
Raise your hands if you want the money.
Well, you would do it,
You really can't
Lori
vote in
can chime
there.
in, but if there's, can we give direction?
Well, you could put it on, there's a council meeting next
then.
week, so you
Make a
could have
resolution.
something on next week's meeting, and you could certainly act on it if there's consensus.
Yeah, it'd be a budget amendment going forward.
Why don't we put it in the next meeting?
I would support that.
And we'll talk about it.
Talk about it
In the
then.
meantime.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Excellent job, Brian.
Just want to thank the whole staff. There's a lot of people that got involved in this, and they're sick and tired of me doing this presentation. But I did say cash is king, and I forgot that one. It is very true. Never forget that.
Forgot Alex again.
Where is Alan? I looked for